Let's go. All right. Glad to have you guys here. Hopefully, you enjoy that little intro. Got to switch things up every once in a while, right? Yes, indeed. It's going to be a good show. Let's go ahead and start things off by putting on some of that branding. Give me a follow over on the X platform. I'm going to post some exclusive content over there, actually, in regards to Stellar later tonight. I haven't seen anybody post about it. And it's not just about Soroban, there's another thing to pay attention to. But yeah, we're going to welcome you guys. Please smash the like if you haven't done so already. As you guys know, it helps kick in the YouTube algorithm. And with that said, we're going to start things off by welcoming you guys. You've seen the titles. We're going to talk about Stronghold, especially Stellar, Protocol 20, Soroban, you name it. Why is that all important? Obviously, a little bit about Jasmy as well, right? I mean, I've been talking guys' ears off about Jasmy, but Jasmy does need to get some more coverage because, come on, get over a penny plus earlier. I mean, I was telling Will Fix and some other friends like crazy stuff going on. Jasmy, I mean, like was it 2 days ago? My portfolio was like 5,600. I'm at 11K now. I mean, my God, yeah, big time scam though, right? Anyway, all right. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into welcoming a few guys here in a bit. I just got to double check a couple settings real quick, and I think we're pretty much good. Yes, we are. All right. So let me just pull up this, and this. All right. So let's start off with the first comment of the day, and I believe it comes from Tim Shea, but let's just double check real quick. Who does it really come from? Well, I was right. It does come from the one and only Tim Shea, who sprays from far away. Thank you for being here, the mayor of Crypto commissioner, representing the 589 district of the XRP Army and his fellow constituents, Tim Shea. Thanks for being here, Tim. Boom. All right. We also have Dennis Leal, who is here. Hello, everyone. I retweeted some of your info. I thought it was pretty good, solid tweet. So thank you for that. Thank you supporting everything that you've been doing. Appreciate you, Mr. Dennis Leal. Mr. Dingy, aka Daniel. It was a very moist and hard day. At the same moment, watching Jasmy pump. Yeah. All right. Well, boom. That was good stuff though. It was nice watching the pump. I was really excited. At one point I saw Jasmy at like I think it was like 11 or 12% up on the 1 hour chart. And I was like, oh man. And then it dropped a little bit and then it did it again. So tomorrow will be an interesting day too. I don't know. It's going to be a massive dump. Well, who knows? People take profits, but it's a big milestone. Anyway. All right. We also have a few more of you guys that saw Boomer. And you're like, hey, man, is there going to be a show tonight or what? Like, or what, Maximus? Gosh. Yes, got distracted by my neighbor. That's how it goes sometimes. But nonetheless, looked at the time and I was like, oh, crap, I got to get back. I got a thumbnail made and all that stuff. But thank you for being here, Mr. Boomer for Sooner. All right. X marks the spot. It's been a while since we've seen X, but glad to have you back, X. Always see you in the recorded. Thank you for being here tonight. Mark Clark. Hello, Crypto Fam. Welcome, Mark. I don't know if I've ever seen you before, but if you were here the other night and I didn't welcome you, sorry about that. Everybody give Mark a warm welcome. Thank you for being here. And on top of that, Jim Miller, welcome back. Ooh, a real picture of the dog this time. Very cool looking dog. Thank you for being here, Jim Miller. SPL is back. Appreciate you for coming back. We're also going to welcome Levi D. I know we're about 5.5 minutes in, so we're going to get into rapid fire here in a bit. Be sincere. It's been a while, man. What is good, brother? Glad to have you back. Always love that name. Be sincere. All right. And let's see here. Somebody say Jasmy Scum. Yeah. Isn't that crazy how that works? Levi D, thank you for being here. Let's check out the other screen. Brian Dowie's in the house. Boom. And yes, I know you guys want me to probably cover Aqua at some point. I will. It just everything takes time, but we'll get there. Philip Jackson's in the house, and I think we're towards the bottom. So that's cool stuff. Another thing I want to mention to you guys is, smash the like, helps get the program out. Corey B-Bay's here. Good evening, crypto future millionaires. Jasmy, not the scammer school. Cool Cat Crypto's in the house. I was thinking about doing BSV today, but so much was happening with Jasmy. I was like, well, we're gonna have to push it off till tomorrow, but it will get its proper outline. We gotta catch up on a lot of things. So that will probably be tomorrow. All right. Glad to have Mr. Cool Cat here. And we're gonna do now is something I gotta do basically kind of weekly. Don't do it necessarily every day, but I forgot to do it the other day, and I think I forgot to do it over the weekend, and I'm just trying to kind of keep up with it. But basically speaking, it is in regards to some of you guys ask what cold storage solution I use. I use this, and it is the Decent Wallet. All right. I also, of course, have a ledger like this. All right. You can get a discount basically from going into the affiliate link, which is in all the live video descriptions and recorded and so on. And for the Yahoos that are out there, they're like, this is just a shill. Do I really shill this all the time? Not necessarily. And here's another thing to keep in mind. And Will Fix pointed this out, and it's a great point. Were you aware that you don't necessarily get a discount link just going straight to the site? No, you actually have to go through a platform like this. So how cool is that? I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But anyway, use the link, get a discount. There's another one here. If you're the type of person you want to get one for you and your significant other, you could get two of them. They actually have another promotion, which is this, and I think this is cool because we never talked about this one before. You can get an all-in-one card wallet plus backup card package. Interesting. I did talk about Tangent. This is obviously decent. But I thought that was cool. And again, one of the main key things I like about the Decent Wallet is not having to do the red tape of, jumping through all the hoops for XDC and the custom folder. I mean, Edward Vincent can vouch on that. Some of you guys can too as well in regards to Ledger. That was a pain in the butt. You don't have that problem. You literally open up your phone. It's on your app. Track everything that's going on, right? And saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto. You know the drill. Check it all out though if you wish to do so. It is truly the cold storage solution that I use for the most part. There's still some on Ledger that I kind of split it up on and so on. So it is what it is. But if I have preference over one, I'm going with this one. A lot easier to use and so on. And some people, even to this day, still ask me which one to use. So check it out. And if anything, let's go ahead and get into the next part of our coverage. And it's going to start off with the headline of the night, which is basically what? Stellar. So let's pull up the branding in regards to that. We're going to get into this outline. Some of you guys have seen the big news that was dropped earlier today in regards to Stellar. So let's go ahead and pull it up. And basically speaking, I like to start things off actually with this. This is from a guy who is really big up on SHX. Now, of course, we have an SHX Stronghold segment for you guys tonight. But basically, I wanted to start off with this as well. I'm following this guy. I would recommend following this guy as well. And he goes by the name of Crypto Banker SHX. You can be followed over at Crypto Banker SHX. This statement is so true, in my opinion. And if anything, you're going to appreciate the content when we get more into both Stellar and even SHX. Think about this for a second. XLM beats ETH hands down. Well, yeah, especially when it comes to TPS and some other things, right? Low cost transactions. Remember the deep dive we did in regards to, stable coins, especially, right? Like USDC, was it like 10 million in stable coins and your fee is like, was it 0.5 zeros and a one? Nobody can come close to that as far as transaction costs. So that's super cool. And when they did that comparison of like some of these other ones like ETH and so on, It's 9-day difference, absolute 9-day difference. And I would agree with this statement. So let's just take a look at this for a second. Financial institutions have been tokenizing, building custom assets, and even managing government on-chain money funds, um, basically compliantly on the Stellar Orb blockchain for the past 5 years. You also got to keep in mind when it comes to Stellar, remember that whole thing we did in regards to a new white paper, not an XLM white paper, nothing like that. Don't get it twisted, but it was a blueprint for regulators, especially for the U.S. government, and it mentioned and referenced the U.S. government quite a few times. You know, we got deep into that PDF, but yes, I would agree with this statement. Superior technology, speed, cost, partnerships, clients means we are about to see the largest transfer of smart contract and DeFi wealth. Boom, to the Stellar network. How cool is that? He's excited to see what it means also for SHX, you know, and we're going to get into that segment here in a bit. But here's the big headline. The headline is actually after this part, but I did see this also from Stellar. They posted this earlier today, 11:05 a.m. Mountain Time. And even if you're not the type of guy who's a nerd to understand all this stuff, you know, understand code, again, I'll make it real quick and easy for you. First smart contract uploaded to Stellar mainnet. That was fast. And of course, you know, you can look more into it right here on the link from horizon.stellar.org/operations216. But man, I mean, you start off here and remember how they talked about, like, you know, was it like 3 lines of code? I mean, I know, was it Quant originally said that, and I think Stellar says something like doing something similar, or getting to the point where, you know, like even with Quant, right? Mentioned, you know, not even having to do any code anymore. Well, where the case be, to attract devs to your platform where they don't have to learn new coding languages and jump through a bunch of hoops and go back to school and all that. Boom, there you go. I mean, we all want examples. That's pretty straightforward. And to have this, like it says, first smart contract uploaded, keep in mind, you know, some people said, I haven't seen any insane price action. It just went live. And so it does take some time. And again, now we need people to, or organizations, projects, you name it. All we need is a few rising stars, but this is a big deal. And apparently, when we get more into this, you're going to see it's not 100 projects, right? They're going live. I think it's like 160. Again, guys, like I've always mentioned, all you need is like a 2 or a handful, which is big, right? Absolutely big. Getting to the next part, this is a little bit more of like that big announcement. So Soroban, you know, we know that this is the premier smart contract platform for Stellar. Did announce earlier today they have reached an important milestone, and basically it's that Protocol 20. You know, it's supposed to come out last month, got pushed out to now. You know, there's a few bugs. Hey, I've always wanted them to get it right instead of getting it wrong. You know, like that's the way to do things, in my opinion. You don't rush things out when they're not ready. But yes, smart contracts now live on mainnet. Finally, very cool. Stellar Network just upgraded to Protocol 20, the most transformative upgrade to the Stellar Network to date, marking the beginning of a new era for the network. Now, I will play this, and you will hear from a familiar gentleman who's obviously focused on Soroban, and you know his name is Justin. But listen to this, and we got more video clips and so on to get into. But I thought I would at least play this. So appreciate the coverage. Please smash the like. Let's get the program to a larger base. Here we go.
Today, the Stellar mainnet upgraded to Protocol 20. Woohoo! Protocol 20 introduces Soroban, which is Stellar's cutting-edge smart contracts platform. This creates new surface area for innovation and provides new opportunities for developers to build protocols and products that create access to everyday financial services. So it means a gradual increase in transaction capacity and a chance to fine-tune applications. And it's the most transformative upgrade to the Stellar network to date. Woohoo!
Yes, a big time woohoo, right? Anyway, getting more into this and why it's significant. I'm gonna pull up another particular thing. Give me just a moment to get into that. So here's part 2 of this thread, and let's go ahead and pull it up on the screen for you if you can see it. So it talks about this as well, right? and basically it's a nice little outline, lots of details. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people retweeting this, chopping it up, community people and so on, right? But the upgrade itself, if you were wondering, if you're just tuning in, does kick off the start of the phase rollout of Soroban. And that rollout, wow, what a profound rollout that's going to be. The smart contracts platform basically on Stellar. Currently, they're in phase 0. So, it's going to take a little bit of time. But like it says, crucial for network operators to observe post-upgrade conditions after the upgrade and not intended for end users. When you get more into this, I think I was keeping on the other previous one a little bit bigger. But yes, bring smart contracts to Stellar, upgrade vote. That already happened. Validators voted to go live on the Stellar mainnet. So it's the beginning of this phase. So we're in phase 0. We're not into these other phases yet, but it's called stability testing. Ledger capacity for Soroban contracts starts low. This phase is for stability testing only. But here's the juicy part, in my opinion, that I think is going to excite a lot of people, and that is the deployment and monitoring of some of these smart contracts, right? So when we get to that phase 1, like it says, ledger capacity for Soroban transactions increase. Applications can begin deploying, testing on mainnet. Then it gets to this phase 2. And if you're wondering when it was posted, it was posted this morning, 10:40 Mountain Time. User-ready mainnet. Anyone can deploy and interact with smart contracts. Ledger capacity will continue to increase. Now, if you're a new person to all this, and I've seen some of you guys say that it's okay, we're all human, right? It's not about like who knows more than the next guy. But I consistently see people, for whatever reason, and again, this is no bash on anybody, but they'll say something like, how can I purchase Soroban? It's not a coin. It's not that type of thing. It's a smart contract. So you need to look at Soroban, if you're new to all this, like how you would look at, Ethereum and let's face it, right? Like especially ERC20 smart contracts, right? This is a disruptor of the overall conglomerate. If you understand how big smart contracts can be, then you should understand where like Solana came from, nothing and became a big deal, especially the last, bull market, and even what it's doing right now. I mean, say what you want. I look at like Solana and Ethereum, like they're part of a Formula One race, if you will, right? And you're, which car are you going to bet on? And, the sponsors they have and so on. And, Ethereum has dominated this space that we're in for, many years basically and so on. But its time is coming, in my opinion, to an end because they just haven't got with it as far as speed and so on. Some people will say, well, yeah, they have. I mean, there's roll-ups and so on, right? But it's their tech. I mean, there's a difference between these layer 2s and just original Ethereum, right? Well, again, look at Stellar. Stellar is going to put a big dent into the competition, and I want to get into a little bit more of why I feel that way. So there's part 3 of this thread. And when you get more into it, you will see, like it says, they will embark on this exciting journey, bringing DeFi to Stellar. It's important to manage expectations among all users. Today marks a beginning, not an end. It's pretty profound. Stay connected, check out the community, all this stuff, right? If you click on the banner, it will take you to this. And basically speaking, I just want to kind of jump to these key parts because there's a lot that's basically mentioned here. I don't want to make this segment 2 hours, basically. You know me, I do really get into the deep dives. But I went to this particular section, and it's, again, about this whole phase, the rollout. So this is, phase 0, if you will, kind of like, the prequel to, or, the pre-phase, right? So today's vote marks the beginning of the phase rollout, where validators who vote to configure network settings will increase capacity for smart contract transactions in a series of I can't even pronounce it right now, steps. The phase approach will give those validators, as well as other network participants, time to monitor smart contract functionalities' impact on the network, ensure performance, security, stability at every step. I mean, you do like the idea that they're crossing the T's, dotting I's, right? Gradually, like it says, validators plan to increase limits for Soroban transactions, building up to full capacity. As increases happen, we will enter phase one. The 160 plus builders. Think about that for a second. You know, we started off, I think, originally when we were covering this with Soroban, like 40, then went to 100, and then this is the last report, 160 plus. So 160 plus builders and projects already building on testnet and will begin to deploy on mainnet. Later, once projects are deployed, the network has been stress tested and ecosystem is satisfied. dApps will launch for all 2 years. Now, this is crucial for you to understand. You haven't seen, like, this is not going to go parabolic with this news, but it's a big deal about Protocol 20, is it not? When we talk about utility in motion, this is not quite utility in motion yet. It's kind of like inviting everybody to the party and putting the frame up and so on. But we're not open for business. You know what I mean? It's like like somebody open up a restaurant, and the owners kind of getting together, and you're putting up a bunch of party decorations and so on. You're preparing for that grand opening, but it's not the grand opening, right? And as we know, if we're going to apply this to blockchain and DLT, the grand opening would be the utility of motion. You want to get some butts in the seats and so on. You want to see some things, some orders taking place, and the transactions. That's utility of motion, right? So basically, like it says, Stellar Development Foundation will communicate throughout the process, but the initial details on the rollout can be found in this video for those who are interested. Well, I thought I would share this with you. Why? Because it's only 2 minutes and 21 seconds, and it's a good video. So let's check this out. You're going to hear from Justin once again, and it's a good outline, and I think it's going to give us a taste of what is coming here very soon. If Stellar's your thing, again, smash the like, helps get the program out to a larger base. Let's go ahead and play this. Here we go, and if it bugs out, I will fix it. Hold on a second.
Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem at the Stellar Development Foundation. Today, the Stellar mainnet upgraded to Protocol 20. Woohoo! It's a big day because it's the beginning of the phased rollout of Soroban, which will finally bring smart contracts to Stellar. The Protocol 20 upgrade is a huge achievement, and it's made possible by the collaborative efforts of the entire ecosystem. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for working together to make it happen. Thank you. Protocol 20 introduces Soroban, Stellar's cutting-edge smart contract platform, which creates new surface area for innovation and provides new opportunities for developers to build protocols and products that create access to everyday financial services. So this is not just a technical upgrade, it's actually a significant leap forward for the Stellar ecosystem and the most transformative upgrade to the Stellar network to date. It's the result of over 2 years of hard work, hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and extensive community collaboration. Now that the upgrade is complete, we're working with network validators to initiate a phased rollout for Soroban transactions on mainnet. So to ensure that Soroban is introduced safely and that it doesn't disrupt all the products and services that have been effectively leveraging Stellar for years, the plan is to start by allowing a small number of Soroban transactions in each ledger. So these are in addition to the current ledger limits, and then to work with validators to methodically increase the amount after it's clear that everything is running smoothly. Phase 0, which starts today, it focuses on network stability. This phase is crucial for network operators. It's not yet intended for full use. Phase 1 will allow developers to deploy and test contracts on mainnet. And then in phase 2, Soroban will be ready for production use. For developers, it means a gradual increase in transaction capacity for smart contracts and a chance to fine-tune applications. And for users, it's a promise of a robust platform where they can soon engage with new use cases. We will make sure to communicate as much as we can about the phases moving forward, make sure that you know what's happening and where we are in the rollout. This is a super exciting moment in the Stellar journey. The launch of Protocol 20, Soroban, it's a new chapter for the network. And I just want to thank you, the community, for your continued support. We look forward to seeing what you'll build on Soroban.
All right, very cool to be able to share that. I'm going to scroll down to just a few other key things I noticed before we kick it into the conclusion. So I'm going to pull this back up one more time. And yes, like you see right here, Stellar, a network that is low cost. Think about that for a second. How much of a low cost? Well, basically very, very low. I mean, if you could move 10 million in stable coins and it's only 0.5 zeros and a one, and the competition doesn't even come close to that, that's game changer. Now with smart contracts on Stellar, kind of like what Justin was talking about, a whole new world is opening up for builders where security, affordability, and scalability aren't on the roadmap but built into the code, with resources and tools for the masses and access to an ecosystem that is already delivering real world utility. Imagine being able to, scale up and have, a moment where devs realize for the future that they're going to have a problem and they can go through the code and prepare for, let's face it, some possible outcomes that could be a problem. That's a good thing. This whole thing of, secure, make it easy to build is a good thing. For Soroban itself, like it says, security, ease of building, or priority number one. In collaboration, consultation with the ecosystem, intentional design decisions were made so builders wouldn't need to start from scratch or choose performance over security. I like that. Together, a decision was made to use Rust and WASM, tested and well-known tools. I mean, think about that for a second. You know, we've talked about some of these things with other blockchains, right? Think about it. So, yes, to have tested, well-known tools for Soroban's tech stack to build and experience prioritizing safety, speed, and familiarity. I think that's all great. This part about scalability, we need to take a moment to look at this. So it says scalability and efficiency are the bread and butter of any platform, and you shouldn't have to compromise basically that when building. Talks about more about the whole thing of transaction costs need to be low. I mean, this is all common stuff, but I like this statement here. This is where smart contracts shine, especially on Stellar. Soroban engineers have conducted research to influence the design of specific features that support network scalability and sustainability. And here's an example for all of you guys. Soroban employs a fees and excuse me, that was my bottle going off. Sorry. Employs a fees and metering structure that allows individual resource consumption, such as ledger entry reads and writes, CPU instructions, RAM, which is memory, to be priced independently, and it offers a state-of-the-art method for archiving state that involves the age-old blockchain problem of state bloat. And I've covered state bloat in the past. I know some of the nerd talk, but look what it says. No retroactive fixes or massive upgrades are needed to solve problems that can be solved from the beginning. What do they mean by that, guys? Think about this for a second. What they mean by that is enabling developers to have the tools needed to prepare for the future. What kind of future? Well, maybe future problems. See, if you look more into like Ethereum, for instance, and smart contracts, this is a lot of the problem. If at your core foundation, you don't really have any true scalability, well, then you're stuck in the mud. This is where a lot of, complaints about how Ethereum is garbage at this point. Maybe it's been always garbage, but whatever you want to call it, it's the McDonald's of smart contracts. Enter in Soroban for Stellar. I kind of look at like the analogy of going, and I used this analogy before, to a Chinese buffet. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of that quantity. Are you going to get a lot of that quality? Not really. You want gourmet, you're not going to really get it there. All right. Look at Soroban in that type of light. So in conclusion, I want to bring something up to you guys in regards to all the coverage and, let's face it, pretty much big news for today. And that is this. What exactly does this do? What exactly is so significant about today? Well, there is significance in regards to this, in regards to my conclusion and research notes. So at the end of the day, what is the bottom line? Well, it's possibilities, it's opportunity. This in itself does, in fact, open up new possibilities, especially for Stellar. Smart contracts, as we know, are essential programmable agreements that can automate various financial services And there's specific transactions to create more complex applications. And what I mean by that basically is you're going to see a bunch of dApps being built. If there was ever a complaint in the past of Stellar doesn't have enough dApps, the only ones you hear about the connections is like Wisdom Tree and stuff like that. Well, be ready for a huge influx of dApps. I'm just going to go ahead and call that right now. I'm not the only one that feels that way. So their presence on Stellar in regards to this whole thing of Soroban unlocks possibilities for building decentralized finance, DeFi protocols. Again, a little bit more back to the whole thing with the dApps, issuance platforms, for instance. If we hear about Larry Fink talking about the tokenization of all this, well, DeFi protocols and asset issuance platforms, that's going to be the pathway towards getting to where we need to be. Escrow services, prediction markets, and much more. In my opinion, this is going to significantly impact the utility of what Stellar provides and basically like the outbounded, the stretch or reach of the network. You're going to be able to do more things than you normally could do before with Stellar. A lot of the criticism and FUD that has been circulating in regards to Stellar, if you really look into it, you just created a mechanism in place to enable your platform to reach unbounded, scale that needs to be answered, right? What about the whole thing of enhanced functionality? Think about this for a second, right? Currently speaking, Stellar primarily facilitates simple payment transactions. Is this why that we see the price around what it is? Well, maybe not, but smart contracts, we do know this much, do add an extra layer, a huge layer. I mean, imagine for a second, hear me out, that Ethereum didn't have smart contract functionality. What would they really have? I mean, if you really think about it. I mean, every time we think of Ethereum, we think of ERC20, ERC20, right? Do we not? So smart contracts do add that layer of sophistication, and it allows for conditional payments. Think about that for a second. Multi-signature accounts, automated token swaps. I like that. When you hear automated token swaps, that is automated utility in motion. There's going to be other advanced functionalities, but it's going to attract not just the devs that came into Soroban right now, but other devs who may be thinking about it in the future, but just want to see how the whole thing went with Soroban. And that's a fact, right? Because at the end of the day, there are devs, they're going to, sit on the sidelines and be like, well, I'm with this particular blockchain and I have obligations to my team and so on, but, we're not going to be too loyal to Ethereum anymore. We realize where the future is at. Yeah, the future is with Stellar, and it's through Soroban. What about increased competition? Because let's be honest, right? All these guys compete with each other. Last we checked, basically, and these reports kind of fluctuate, but in the past, it was like 70 to 90% of, smart contracts are dominated by Ethereum, and 5 to 10% was, or is, I should say, in regards to Solana, especially when it comes to NFTs and whatnot. So look at those two. You still have to recognize that Ethereum is one of the ones that dominates, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum, 81% of the overall market dominance for the overall crypto market. Solana is a top 10, right? Yeah, their network goes down, but again, guys, the key thing is smart contracts. Don't ever forget why you're here to pay attention to this. So for Stellar to put it in, create this mechanism, I think this is the biggest deal, in my opinion. And this is my opinion. I'm just one guy. I don't know everything, but a lot of people focus on Stellar when it comes to, like the saying goes, the retail money, right? The peer-to-peer money for cross-border payments and all this stuff, right? Not the bank, necessarily the bank-to-bank money, even though they're part of that mix. But when we understand about the big players, I think you have to now seriously realize that Stellar is going to create that pressure cooker effect, of supply and demand. Um, Again, I could be completely wrong on this, but again, we're not to the point of this 160 projects that are live and boom, ready to go. We're in these phases. But think about it. I don't think we're overthinking it. If Luna Classic, and this is no bash on Luna Classic, because I mean, I hold it too. A lot of you guys do as well. But if Luna Classic is like really trying to attract devs to come back, well, what if you just have a blockchain that already has made something into place in which is very attractive to new devs, old devs from other, like Ethereum and so on, to come into the ecosystem? You are creating incentive, you're incentivizing these guys to build on your platform, saying, look, you don't have to learn new code. And if you're limited with your coding abilities, okay, don't sweat it too much, because you can hook up with these devs on this platform. You can build, and it's not that much in regards to coding, like 3 lines of code, if that. You can team up with somebody to focus on what your passion is, and that is to simply build out this ecosystem. You don't think that's like the coolest thing in the world for devs to hear that? Oh yeah, it's definitely the coolest thing. But again, like we said, increase competition. So by adding smart contracts, listen to this for a second. I know this is a lot to get into. Stellar enters a space dominated by platforms like Ethereum and, like I said, Solana. This creates competition and encourages further development and innovation with, of course, the Stellar ecosystem. I mean, will you have, people from Solana jumping ship? I don't know about that. That's kind of a stretch, but I think it's safe to say, I think most of us on the general consensus of things would agree that you definitely would see quite a few wanting to jump ship from Ethereum, right? You're going to go from McDonald's to, like, In-N-Out Burger or something like that. I guess that's a bad comparison, but you know what I mean? You're going to go from fast food to literally gourmet. That's the way I look at it. All right, a little bit more about this phase rollout for a bit, right? Because I do feel as though it's a big deal, and it's not like every day we get to talk about Stellar, right? But it's always, you ever notice that it's excitement to talk about Stellar? I know I get some criticism, like, don't hype it up too much. Hey, I'm gonna be myself. I won't apologize for being myself. This whole thing of you hype things up too much, too bad. I'm never gonna apologize for being myself. But I naturally am gonna be hyped up about it because there's a lot to be excited about. So a phase rollout ensures stability. The cautious phase approach in regards to the rollout of these smart contracts is crucial for maintaining network stability, and back to what Justin was talking about in regards to security. It allows for gradual testing, monitoring, adjustment to ensure everything functions smoothly, right? Like a well-oiled machine. All right, what about a little bit more of this growth? Because we talked about 160 plus projects to boom, go all live at once. And again, this is just phase 0. We're not even to the full thing of being done. And when that happens, boy, oh boy. So as developers build applications utilizing these specific smart contracts through Soroban, obviously on the Stellar platform, it will attract more users and investors, of course, into the Stellar ecosystem. As the saying goes, I mean, you drive past, like a building, right? And you see all those construction workers out there, and there's not even a sign on the fence that's saying coming soon. What is everybody going to talk about? They're going to talk about, well, something's going on, down the block, a mile down the road, right? I don't know what that is, but it increases what? Curiosity. And let's face it, this is not construction, but it's construction in regards to Web3, and that will catch the eyes of some people, whales and institutional investors, not just retail. But it's the whole thing of those investors joining this ecosystem is going to lead to increased network activity. And activity is what? Paired up with the whole key thing of, utility that's in motion. So token value appreciation. That sounds exciting. I'm a retail investor, I'm not an institutional investor. Everybody wants to pay attention to what's going on in regards to token value appreciation. Look what happened with Jasmy recently, right? We want to see this with Stellar, do we not? So overall growth for the platform is a huge, huge win. All right, moving forward, why you might be here tonight, or maybe you're just new, and that's cool too. The successful integration and adoption of smart contracts, of course, will be crucial, but especially when it comes to the whole thing of Soroban. It is crucial for Stellar's future. They had to get this right. If this is their premier smart contract platform, they have to get it right. They can't just be like, well, let's just rush this out. They didn't do that. So kudos to them for that, right? It will attract talented developers. I think you already see this. It's going to foster more of that innovation applications, but it's going to significantly, cause it to like reach its potential or full potential and create a huge impact moving forward. There are some points to consider, and that is this. All right. Three things before we wrap this up. I know it's a lot to get into. The timeline for full launch and public use of dApps obviously is yet to be determined because, I mean, we're not at a full phase rollout yet. Long-term impact on Stellar's token price and adoption depends, of course, on quality and success of these specific applications. And, of course, what they're doing with cross-border payments and so on. Duh, right? But you got to keep in mind, adoption depends on the quality and success of these applications that are built on top of these Soroban smart contracts. But in reality, we cannot expect that all 160 of these are going to be premier quality ones. My God, if it was, then that'd be incredible, but that's not being realistic. I will stick to my guns about the saying when it comes to you just need a handful. I mean, if Stellar was to get like an Ajax or something like that, part of their ecosystem, and that one just went gangbusters. That in itself is absolutely huge for Stellar. And I think that's realistically going to happen. 160 projects, you're trying to tell me that you can't get at least 5 to do something between now and the end of 2025? I think there's definitely going to be somebody that's going to come out from that. And last but not least, in regards to the whole thing of regulatory concerns around DeFi, especially when it comes to Stellar and Soroban and smart contracts, well, it of course poses challenges for Stellar in the future, but I think they're more than good. Why? They have already released everything during a perfect time. Do you think it's awfully convenient that they came out with that white paper for that blueprint in regards to, hey, United States of America, here's what we think you guys should do, and we're even partnering with you for this blueprint? That's there for a reason. And I'm glad they have that there, because having that in place tells me, you and everybody else, they are prepared for regulatory compliance from beginning to end. And you better believe smart contracts open up a different can of worms. I don't even want to call it worms, a can of gems. How about that for Stellar? So we're going to continue to obviously follow everything that's going on with this in regards to Stellar. I do think it's a big deal. And can't, I never get bored with talking about Stellar. It always excites me. We can't obviously talk about Stellar every day. You know how it goes. But again, it's, if you compare Stellar coverage to, a year or 2 years ago, night and day difference. I mean, you get updates like maybe once a month, and this is where people got complaints. Oh, it's not really doing anything. Yeah, they're doing something. They're building in the background. So with that said, that's the coverage tonight for Stellar. The next bit of coverage we're going to get into here in a bit is Stronghold. A lot of excitement in regards to Stronghold. Let's face it, guys. I mean, we saw, like a 0 or more be erased. So some big things going on in regards to Stellar. I've seen some people even post on X that they feel as though SHX Stronghold will be like in the top 25. Imagine the ranking that's at now. That's absolutely monumental. All right, what we're going to do now is get back into the comments. I'm going to see whatever one was the last one. Might not be spot on in regards to that, but that's okay. Let's read this. Elon Musk 721, half an hour ago. Jasmy pulled back a few percent earlier. Damn scam. Yeah, such a scam, Jeez. Like, I mean, some of you guys got more Jasmy than me. And it's just like, you're thousands of dollars up. Freaking scam, right? Anyway, good fun stuff. Let me take out the branding on that. Let's check out what other comments you guys have. And let's see here. Glad that everybody's giving dabs to Corey B-Bay. Good evening, future millionaires. I did welcome you earlier. Yeah, glad to always have you being sincere. Thanks for the support on the recorded, the live. Appreciate you, man. All right. What else we have? Philip Jackson. Thank you. Always give a shout out to everyone. It's a great community. It is a great community. We may not be the biggest community out there, but man, I mean, it's. I remember when I used to be active at my old church. One thing I loved about my old church was very welcoming, and people would say that, like, it's like we might not have the greatest music or maybe the greatest sermon, but by George, we knocked it out of the park when it came to making people feel welcome at the church. So I always kind of use some of those concepts when it comes to people and community. I've always been a community builder, like whether it's my gaming group and so on. So um, I'm glad to have you, Philip, and I do appreciate being here. Consider changing your avatar. It speaks about, like who you are, what you're about. Like for instance, here's an example. Here's Corey Bebe, right? He did his avatar for Caspa. Obviously, he's big on Caspa. So, but you don't have to. If you want to keep it that way, that's fine too. All right, look at this huge scam. Yeah, big time, right? Anyway, that's good stuff. All right, River, how's it going with River, man? How you doing tonight? You at the ice skating rink? You watching your son? What's going on with that? How's your son's team doing? Do you have a record on that, or does it even matter? I don't know. What I mean? Maybe just there, whether he's doing great or not. But I know you're always mentioning that. Unless I confused you with Blackwood. Sometimes, because you guys are like, broskies, maybe I'm confusing with him. I don't think I am, though. All right. Uncle Thursday's back. Hey, Uncle Thursday. I think this is like, what, the third time in a row that you've been here? That's cool. Super cool. Oh, you saw that segment in regards to the descent wall? Yeah. I mean, they have to compete. Tangent's doing that whole thing, right? So that's cool. Beebs says Japan moving closer to allowing venture capital firms to buy crypto assets. That was something that we were talking about on yesterday's show, and I feel as though that maybe that is what sent Jasmy. I mean, supply and demand kicks in, and then if anything, think about this for a second, something like that gets announced, boom. And it's like, well, what's tied to this? Who's the first to be regulatory compliant in Japan? Who's the Bitcoin in Japan? Boom. Oh, it's Jasmy. Boom. Supply and demand kicking. I mean, it's a no-brainer, That's at least the way I look at it. I think a lot of people look at it that way too. All right, let's see here. We also got you're trying to picture Danelle. Okay, that's interesting. All right, let's see here. And Danelle is not a scam. All right. All right. Boomer. Effing sooner. Jasmy needs a bigger pullback so you could buy more and more and more. Well, yeah. Shout out to the one and only Elon Musk who bought bottom that day. What was it, Mike? You bought like 0.002728. Literally call me up on the phone. You gotta buy everything now. And I'm like looking at the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. I went on a spree that day. It was Jasmy. It was audio. It was the graph. I will state this. I know I don't talk about the graph a lot. That one deserves an honorable mention. I put literally, I think it was like $330 into that, and I think it's worth like $1,200 right now because I bought the bottom, 6.5 cents, and it's like what, 25, 28 cents, maybe 30. I don't know. I have to double check. Graph is solid. The Google of crypto. Anyway, there's a lot of things I'm into that you're not, you guys aren't, and vice versa, right? I mean, we could be here all day with this stuff. All right, Dennis Leal, Crypto Canvas on YouTube, also early on SHX. Very cool, very cool. Let's read this from Clint. I don't think I've ever seen you before, Clint. He says, "What up from Dallas?" Cool. Well, welcome to welcome Clint. Lots of cats in here. Look at this. Here's Clint. Here's Cool Cat. Yeah, interesting. All right. Make sure you guys always welcome new people. Tim Shea's doing that. And I like your name. I think I've seen you before. Sombert. In the Discord countdown today, it was stated that phase 0, okay, so of course you're referring to Soroban, will last a week, and phase 1 will last 3 weeks, thus 4 weeks to phase 2 if all goes smooth. That's not bad at all. I'm not complaining about that at all. And how about this, guys? I mean, we talk about this accumulation phase at some point is going to come to an end because we'll get to markup. Let's just be honest about it. And there's also that area between, accumulation and all-time highs for markup, right? But it's like this, we are going to get to the point we're going to say, man, I wish I could have got Stellar back when it was, 11 cents, 12 cents, and so on. Myself, my last bag I bought was like around 7 cents, right? Maybe some of you guys was cheaper than that, but whatever the case be, understand that this thing with Soroban, I think is absolute. I think it's still the biggest deal. I mean, I know we talk about other ones that part of the ecosystem. Obviously, you're big on Somber. There's obviously SHX. There's quite a few other things, right? But the key thing is recognizing that the native token, which is XLM, I don't think it's going to stay around these price levels. So we all have regrets about certain things. What about Caspa? My God, remember when we were talking about a penny and a half? And geez, I mean, every other day, what do you see in regards to Caspa? New all-time highs. So, I mean, shoot, man. I mean, I just don't really think that Stellar is XLM. I mean, is going to still stay at 11, 12 cents forever. I mean, and then, when you look at the dates here, what are we at? 220, right? We're on February 20th. So basically what Somber is saying, like 4 weeks, if everything all goes well, that would push us towards the end of March. And then after that, what Bitcoin halving, like a month from that. So a lot of interesting things are definitely going on, Anyway, all right. Aquarius on Soroban. Very, very cool. All right, let's see here. Let's welcome Stump Rider. Welcome back. Good to see you back. And Phoenix and Dragon is back. Welcome back. I'm gonna double check the other screen. Whatever happened to Brian Riley? He just kind of took a break. I still talk to him. I mean, like talking like on, messaging and stuff like that. And I see some of his posts. So, one of those things. We do miss him though. Maybe you guys can message him and be like, "Hey man, you're missed. Come back." All right. SPL says Stellar is his retirement plan 100%. And then Mr. Dingy is on X. Let's go. All right. What we're going to do now is double check the other screen. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Let's read this last comment. A couple of them. TDM says, "Yo, Simon, Phoenix and Dragon Lumens are the people's money. It's decided that way long ago. I see BTC, Ethereum liquidity flowing through Stellar and more." That's a great way of looking at it. Keziah Wyatt, welcome. You should look at Cubic, built by founder of IO. That sounds interesting. All right. There is a super chat that came through, so I do want to recognize it. When I say check the other screen, that's what I'm referring to, because I'm not trying to skip somebody's super chat. That's kind of messed up. It comes from the one and only Daniel. And what does it say? It says, Jasmy, that's a scam. Let's go. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't say that. I see Legrand Commission's in the house. Legrand Commission. Oui, oui. All right. Merci beaucoup. Les Marshali. What is this super chat? All right. Hold on a second. Trying to get to it. Rue Black is in the house. Brother Rue. MO. I'm still scrolling. Rawhide. Let's read this real quick from Nathan. Bro, Stellar will have all other utility coins integrated into it. Stellar is the fastest and most cost effective. That's a good comment. Thank you so much for being here. Hope to see more of you, Nathan. I like your avatar, by the way. Like how you have the bird knocked out, like I'm with you, right? What do I have over here? All right. Say goodbye to the bird. All right. 279 super chat from the one and only Mr. Dingy, aka Daniel. Let's go. I don't know what that says, but I mean, I could go to Google Translate and basically find out what that means. So let's just do that for a second. And what is the message? So Google Translate. Yes. It's not Chinese, it's Japanese. We will get good profit is what it says. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. All right. What we're going to do now is just double check the other screen one more time. Make sure that we're good. And let's get into what we have. Lots of talk about boosts. Nothing wrong with that. All right. So let's get into SHX. I got to make an avatar now. You know how I do the whole thing of over here? I got to make one for for SHX. It's going to take a little bit of time, but that's okay. I like that one. The whole it looks like a rook, from chess. Shout out to anybody that plays chess. My mom was amazing at chess. I only beat her like I think 7 times in my whole life, and I played her like 500 times or something. She just destroyed people at chess. Anyway, all right. So what we're gonna do now is pull this up, and where are we at? All right. Yes, let's get this going. So I'm gonna clear out some tabs real quick. Yes, yes. All right. So this one's gonna come straight from Stronghold. And if you're wondering, this is going to start the Stronghold segment of the night. Again, please smash the like. Let's just double check how we're doing on likes. We are at 45 likes, 51 people here. Pretty decent crowd, no complaints. All right, so check this out. Here it is. What do we have here? Well, this was originally posted on February 6th. And here's the thing. It's in regards to December 2023, and you may be thinking, man, that's kind of old. Hear me out. All right, I have a nice little outline for you guys. But like it says, December 2023 marked a significant milestone. 5 years of the SHX token, their first governor's vote. Tammy Camp and Sean Bennett recap the outcome of our community-driven success. It's only 5 minutes, but there's some key things I noticed. I think a lot of people didn't maybe grasp. And if anything, I'm going to point out something that I thought was significant in regards to this. Stronghold's your thing. Listen to this for a second. You may have seen this before. Always nice to have a little refresher. Look at this for a second. Here we go.
So that happened. That was our first ever governance vote. What do you think? How did it go?
It was a really, really busy time for us. But I think all in all, it went really well for the first time that we've ever done this.
Yeah, I was really surprised about how many people participated from our community. Like, it felt like everyone came out. And I think we even 6x'd our audience.
Yeah, the numbers that we saw the community growing over the voting period as compared to just before it, I think it was about 6x the number of new members coming on board.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked that we got was a lot of feedback throughout the process, which we managed to incorporate some of it during the vote, and obviously it'll help us for the next one as well. So all in all, a really, really good first time.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I was really genuinely surprised about how many votes that we got in general. Like, what was the final tally of that?
I think in terms of number of SHX that ended up voting as a valid vote, it was 210 million, give or take, right?
Right. So tell me about what do you think we should do for the next one?
I think one of the big questions that I have for next time is, where is that proposal going to come from? Or going forwards, where are those proposals going to come from? Obviously we put the first one forward, but in future, we're going to have to find a way to make even the process of coming up with the questions more inclusive to the community, right?
Yeah, that's right. How do you think other crypto projects do that? Or who does it well?
There's a lot of DeFi projects that I like. I probably won't try and pick, my favorites here, but a lot of them have forums, I've noticed, where they'll talk about things. So you'll see people talk about things on the Discord. And I have actually seen in our Discord some people coming up with some, beginnings of ideas, which is cool. But I think we need a space where people can write down, hey, this is what I think is a really good idea, and then let people actually comment on that sort of in a single thread. So I think that model might be something that we can start looking at.
Yeah, maybe we should vote on a forum.
Oh, there we go.
So
There's an
meta.
interesting idea. Number 2, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. What surprised you the most for this voting event?
Well, coming up to the vote, I think the thing that struck me first was that there's a lot of infrastructure that was missing, right? We were building on top of the Stellar Ledger, which is fantastic for payments, but it is missing a lot of the functionality that you'd see on like an EVM chain like Ethereum. So there was a lot of work that we had to do, but we did get there, and I think it was an acceptable voting experience at the end of the day. So the results came in, and in the end, it came through as a very strong for the burn, and it's 70% as the proportion to burn. Is that surprising to you?
It was not surprising to me at all. I think over the years, a lot of people have been asking when we were going to burn some of the supply, because obviously that makes the token a little bit more unique and deflationary. And so I think that the community's been, asking that question for a long time. So I was not surprised whatsoever that I came back at that number. I was actually surprised that I was not 80%.
Well, if I could be, I hope this isn't controversial, but I wish that the burn proportion was going to come out a little lower. I was hoping for something more like 50-50. I think thinking from the business side, there is certainly a case where I think we need to keep that incentive mechanism there for the capital contributors. So I think 50 would have been a nice balance, but with the rates coming down overall, I think it will still be a really good, really good deal for our merchants.
What do you think our community can expect to see next?
I think the two big things that the community will see us doing, one, implementation of this vote. I think there's still a question that we're, talking about internally is how quickly do we get this on top of Stellar, or is that even the right thing to do? Right? Soroban's coming out. You never want to be one of the first players on something new as well. That's, not a good idea, especially when we're moving money. Never a good idea. So we'll be watching what happens with Stellar and Soroban really closely to see if that's a stable platform for us to put smart contracts in. And then you can see more of the MCA program actually moving there. Without that, it's going to be a little more difficult for us to put that on top of Stellar for now. So we're working on that, and we'll see where that ends up. The second thing that we're going to be working on is ramping up for vote number 2 and how we want to do that going forwards. We're continuing to reflect on all the learnings that we got out of this vote and trying to think about what will make it better, more inclusive in the future. But all eyes on that Soroban release. It really changes a lot for us.
Because we've been focused so much on just building the business. That means doing bank partnerships, payment network partnerships, merchants, and onboarding, all these customers, getting all these transactions on Stronghold Net. It was really nice to come back at the end of the year and then really realign ourselves back to our SHX community.
On the 5th year anniversary.
On the 5th year anniversary.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously very cool to share that. I want to share a little bit more in regards to this. So give me just a minute to pull this up. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to jump on over to this next particular part. And this ties, I guess you could say, some XRP in with it. There's some, XLM, but it's kind of like what we're talking about in regards to what you saw in the thumbnail from the live show. This whole thing of like Stellar, XLM, ETF. I mean, it's just like, geez, really? Like, lots to talk about ETFs, right? Saw this a little earlier, and I thought, interesting. So here's a familiar face. Let's go ahead and pull this up. And believe it or not, it is who? It's the one and only Mr. Brad Garlinghouse. Now, just hear me out on this for a second. It says, from Crypto Banker SHX, lots of great coverage from him, by the way. Give him a follow. I guess he has a YouTube channel as well. He says he thinks it's inevitable that there will be multiple ETFs around different tokens. Now, some people will say they're not mentioning, or Brad Garlinghouse is not specifically mentioning SHX here. No, but again, listen to what he says, because he mentions like it opens up possibilities for other particular tokens. This is 1 minute and 10 seconds. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you guys, I have a follow-up in regards to this I think is worth paying attention to. So, needless to say, this came from Bloomberg Crypto, and just listen to it. And if anything, drop in the comments what you think. I do think this is a big deal. It says Ripple CEO hopeful for stable coin regulation from Bloomberg. Double check the volume. Here we go.
So you would welcome an XRP ETF then?
We would certainly welcome it, and I think it's inevitable that there'll be, multiple ETFs around different tokens. And I think you'll even see ETFs potentially around baskets that also, I think, further diversify that risk.
Given there's so much excitement around the ETF dynamic here, are you in talks with the largest issuers, particularly BlackRock, to get this done?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I know BlackRock has said some things publicly. We think it makes sense for the XRP community overall. Ripple obviously is a very important stakeholder in the XRP ecosystem, but we're not the only player. And look, we've seen, I mean, before the SEC lawsuit, XRP was the second most valuable digital asset. I think because of the headwinds of that lawsuit, we've now seen that largely abate. But the long-term view on these things is about, how do you create utility and really solve real-world problems with these different digital assets? Bitcoin's doing that very well as a store of value. XRP and its dynamics around being very fast, very efficient, and low cost on a per transaction basis makes it ideal for payments. And that's where Ripple really has leaned into as a company.
All right, so that's about Ripple. You made me thinking, well, what about the whole thing with XLM and SHX? I'm with you. I understand where you guys are coming from. So I'm gonna pull this up as well, and this is this next particular tab that I thought was, worth pointing out from the same guy, crypto banker SHX. Let's pull this up on the screen as well. And he points this out. I know I'm on the frame, but look what it says. It says, given the insane connections that SHX, right, Stronghold has with XRP, an XRP ETF would be absolute fire for SHX. Given the insane connections SHX has with XLM, even an XLM ETF would be absolute Valhalla for SHX. At the end of the day, if you know about the whole thing with, Stronghold, you know that they got this thing going on, not only with, for instance, Stellar, but it's also Ripple, and it's also FedNow, and it's also, some of the things that we shared, right? In regards to clearinghouses and why that's significant. So I thought I would share that with you. And in conclusion, the reason why I feel as though that this is all worth paying attention to is this part. And I said to myself, interesting. This guy brings up the whole thing. And again, this guy is crypto banker SHX, brings up the whole notion of like Stronghold SHX, built obviously with Stellar through the ecosystem, partnered with Ripple's XRP. But like, how the heck is an XLM ETF going to benefit SHX? I mean, some people say, wouldn't it benefit more of like just Stellar? And that's a great question. Well, keep in mind this: whether an XLM ETF would benefit Stronghold would depend on, of course, numerous factors. But I'm going to get into some of the nitty gritty that I have gathered. And again, it's just my opinion, but I think also some other people will look at it the same way. So for one, you got to keep in mind one of these key factors, and that does include the specific design of whatever ETF is going to come out from this in regards to, Stellar, XLM. The overall health in regards to the ecosystem, Stellar's ecosystem, this relationship between SHX, XRP. I'm going to give you guys basically some of the breakdown, the positives, the negatives about this, and so on. So let's get into the good, happy news part of it, right? Like, where we're raw Stronghold. So 3 key potential benefits in regards to a XLM ETF, Stellar ETF, whatever you want to call it. Increase liquidity for XLM. Duh, right? An XLM ETF could bring new investors into, of course, the Stellar ecosystem, but it's going to increase the overall liquidity of XLM. I mean, last I checked, I was covering Saucer Swap. How many of you guys who may be into some of these, decentralized exchanges provide what? Liquidity with token pairs or farming or whatever the case be. You're bringing in retail money to create more liquidity, but this isn't, that type of situation here, right? We're talking about institutional money, and we're talking about creating an exchange traded fund. So the whole idea of creating more liquidity is more utility in motion, and I think this would be huge, obviously, for XLM and obviously SHX. But I do think it would benefit Stronghold by making it easier to buy and sell XLM, which, let's face it, is its used platform. It would create exposure, of course, more for Stellar. That's a win, obviously, for Stellar. But what about SHX? Well, an XLM ETF could raise awareness for the Stellar ecosystem and, of course, its potential. you got to keep in mind that it's going to potentially attract more developers. I mean, we've already seen that already with Soroban, and you did see the reference, right? Did you not? From specifically Mr. Sean Bennett from Stronghold. He mentioned, the whole thing of Soroban. So he realizes the impact of that as well and why that's so significant and why that's going to be so big. So, yes, I do agree. The ETF would potentially even attract that much more developers. And that would, of course, attract more of those type of developers and users to come to the platform. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a common goal. It's going to indirectly benefit Stronghold by creating a more robust and valuable stellar ecosystem. It's a no-brainer. Now, the main highlight that I want to talk about in regards to all those benefits, because I mean, in reality, a lot of people know about these benefits. But what about this? What about arbitrage for SHX? Think about that for a second. A stellar XLM ETF for the potential arbitrage would be big, not just for Stellar itself, but obviously SHX. So if the price of XLM on the ETF differs, for instance, from the price on exchanges, Stronghold SHX would definitely potentially profit from those specific arbitrage opportunities. And I think, if anything, that would stand out big time, because for one, when we look at SHX, current market cap and so on, look where SHX has gone recently. Absolutely massive, right? Erase zeros, and then some of you guys is throw in like 400, 500 bucks, and now it's worth thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Again, ETFs are still a big deal, even though before the big news was buy the rumor, sell the news, and it was kind of like a nothing burger, but that was then. What about now? And what about where we're going here for the future? Now, let's talk about the other side of things, right? That was some of the good news. There is some potential drawbacks in regards to the whole thing. And hear me out in regards to this, because, we got to be real when it comes to all of this. Competition. Let's face it, competition. So an XLM ETF could pose competition for even Stronghold. That's kind of counterproductive, isn't it not? Well, it would offer another way for investors to gain exposure to the stellar ecosystem, but it could create potential competition for SHX, which sounds kind of crazy. There's regulatory uncertainty, even though we have that framework from Stellar. Hear me out. The regulation of ETFs, especially those dealing with digital assets, specifically digital assets, as we know, still evolving. I mean, we're not to the point yet of proper regulation, but any regulatory changes could very well create a negative impact, not just for SHX, but of course, even, Stellar itself with XLM. That's not cool. What about the dependence on XLM's price? Think about that for a second. We're talking about the native token of XLM. The success of an XLM ETF would be heavily dependent on the price, of course, of XLM. This is where people say you have to have a high stable value for XLM. No, we're not talking about a $1 peg, not at all. Like we pointed out in that World Bank brochure, pamphlet, whatever you want to call it. It references two particular cryptocurrencies: Ripple's XRP, Stellar's XLM, as global stable coins, stable value, not a $1 peg. But if the price of XLM was to fall in regards to an actual ETF, that sounds nuts. The ETF could lose value, which could indirectly harm SHX. I mean, as the saying goes, it blankets the ecosystem. That's not a good thing. All right. What about the relationship of SHX and also XRP? I mean, I did show you the whole thing of Brad Garlinghouse in that video. Might as well mention that. Well, it is important to note that while Stronghold is built on Stellar, as we know, partnered also with Ripple and its XRP token. True. While both XLM and XRP are involved in cross-border payments, we know that they do have different functionalities and, of course, different goals. One, like we've always pointed out, is for the retail side of things, cross-border payments, and there's the other side of things, which is not focused so much on retail money, it's focused on the bank-to-bank money. So an XLM ETF would impact Stronghold SHX, but it does definitely depend on how it interacts and competes, of course, even with XRP. So there's that. Is that going to be counterproductive? Well, we would have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, whether it's XLM ETF or SHX, being involved with the whole conglomerate, you have to keep in mind everything depends on a number of these particular factors. And, there's a lot of what ifs. For me personally, I'm leaning more towards the potential benefits that we outlined tonight. And I think that would outweigh the positive negative aspects in regards to these drawbacks, whether it's competition, regulatory uncertainty, or the dependence on XLM's price. So getting into just a tad bit more of this before we kick it into the next segment, which is the Jasmy segment, I wanted to point out this to you guys. And basically it's like this. This is not BSV night, but I want to point this out. And basically it's this. There's a talk of this Crypto Council for Innovation. BSV, you have, for instance, COPA, and then there's Crypto Council for Innovation. I think it's a night and day difference, right? COPA is basically the Crypto Open Patent Alliance. This is not the same thing, so don't get it twisted, as the saying goes. But basically, you do see some key people here in regards to leadership. Where you want to focus on this for tonight is this lady, Sheila Warren. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Crypto Council for Innovation. She's the premier global, like it says, the premier global alliance for advancing the promise of this new technology through research, education, advocacy. Now, as of recent of 2023, Sheila was voted one of the most influential women in DC, right? Washington, DC, the capital of our country, by the Washingtonian, excuse me. Prior to the Crypto Council, listen to this for a second. She founded the World World Economic Forum. Oh God, blockchain and digital assets team, and was a member of the executive leadership team for the Center of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Oh my gosh. I mean, you know how many times we talked about this whole concept? So she obviously gets the whole thing of blockchain and DLT. I mean, that right there says it. She oversaw tech policy strategy across 14 countries, regulatory brief ministers, CEOs of the Fortune 100, heads of states. Wow, what a background. Spent time as a lawyer. I mean, it just goes on and on. Harvard Law School, she, earning a JD, my God, right? So she's definitely, I guess you could say, like one of the elites. Now, how does this tie into the whole thing of Stronghold? Right? Great question. I'm going to take you to this. Here it is. This, of course, is an interview from last year, but the point is what you're going to see mentioned here, okay? And I decided to fast forward it to this part. So let me get to the right tab. This, of course, is shared from Stronghold. And, this was back, I should say 2023. It was actually March 23rd, 2022. So it's been a while. But I fast forward to this part, and we're going to get into why this is a big deal. So, like it says, she's the CEO of CCI, right? Talks work, equal opportunity in crypto and governance. Again, think about what we just mentioned in regards to the comparisons about regulatory uncertainty, governance, all this stuff. Why is this a big deal? Well, if anything, you're going to find out why I decided to tune you into this here in a bit. I'm going to go ahead and play this particular segment. You're going to see why it's a big deal. Stronghold's your thing. Again, please smash the like. Here we go.
Absolutely. So we're a global alliance of industry leaders. We are thinking across the spectrum, across the world, how do we create evidence-based advocacy models? So some of that evidence we have to generate. Maybe it's detailed research, papers into national security, into cybersecurity, into privacy, into all these different kinds of concepts, energy, all these things that are really important. And then how do we use that evidence that we generate to advocate on behalf of users of crypto? So I really see myself as somebody who wants to speak for the voices of users of crypto. My members are a bunch of people at different companies that have a lot of users. We tend to be some of the leading user base in the ecosystem. And so the goal here is to say, how do we protect access and opportunity for people to actually use some of these services and products, and how do we make that broader? We focus on open permissionless decentralized systems. Decentralization is a core tenet of what we're here to preserve, because I think that, we have to be practical about this. There are elements of centralization that come with human behavior. And sometimes when it's fully decentralized, like you see in some DAOs, there's toxicity that lives there. So we have to be mindful of that as well. Like I tend to think that, entropy is real, and I've seen Yellow Jackets. I understand kind of where things go and left to their own devices, the Lord of the Flies. Nevertheless, I think with some structure around some of these things, they are going to prove to be a tool of empowerment for a lot of people. And so the goal is to preserve the aspects of the technology that make that more possible and more likely, and then see, where time takes us. So we speak to, policymakers, regulators all around the world. We also speak to regular people, just kind of to say, like, here is why you shouldn't be afraid of this technology. You don't necessarily have to understand the technology itself, but don't be afraid of getting a wallet, trying some of these things. It's not going to be the terrifying thing you might think it is.
That's right. It can be very intimidating because it seems very technical to some people, especially on the consumer level.
It's spoken about that way, which is, I think, a little unfortunate. I don't know how my phone works. I use it all the time.
That's true. I think there's going to be an evolution of that. So
I think so.
I think one of our core goals here at Stronghold, we are blockchain and cryptocurrency and payments company, but I actually think that when you cross the caption to women, to like having the adoption of like women having creating wallets and learning more about the technology, or just not even learning more about the technology, just using it, that's going to be just the chasm that we need to cross it to.
If you want to be on camera, you want to be behind the camera, you want to do radio, podcast, whatever it is.
I think so too. I think, we already know that women drive consumer decision-making in households, and that's true around the world. And I think there's a new generation coming of digital natives who are going to be crypto native. So I talk about my 3 daughters a lot as girls who will be crypto native. Like, they will have a very different understanding of the engagement model. And I can fully expect my daughter, who's now 9 going on 13, to tell me, in the next decade, like, I can't believe you ever posted a photo to a platform. Like, what were you thinking, Mom? Like, how, that's crazy. You were just being scraped and exploited or whatever. I can completely see that kind of transition happening, because the way that they interact digitally, and it's just so fluid, and so it's become that for me because I'm in tech. But I think most of my law school classmates and others who aren't necessarily as tech savvy or tech forward, it's not as fluid for them. Like, they very much have an online, they go online and then they go offline, right? Whereas for most of us who work in these fields, you're kind of fluid in your identity across these things, and that's becoming more and more the norm.
That's right. And then to your point is that it's going to be user facing, and it's going to be more and more the norm, but you don't really necessarily have to know how the technology works. Right. It's not like, we're on Facebook or Google and we ask them, hey, what's your database? Like, nobody knows what the answer to that is. And I think that maybe that's what we typically ask in this space. So it has some evolving of language that needs to happen to get more usability.
Yeah, and I think that the bigger barrier to entry for folks is that they think they have to, like, what's a hard wallet? What's a cold store? How do I do? You're like, well, you don't really have to. It's okay. Like, you don't really have to do any of that. So I do think that, again, as a society, we empower wealthy people to take more risks than people who don't have so much money. And so there's a reason this has started, I think, at the upper echelons of income and wealth in our society. You got wealth advisors now advising on crypto holdings as part of a diversified retirement portfolio, for example, right? But I think we need to really step away from that a little bit and say, okay, that's because Bitcoin has been very volatile. And so I think there were folks that were like, well, am I going to be savvy enough to know when to exit and when to enter and all that kind of stuff, right? So I don't lose a lot of value that's really, really critical to my family's well-being. It's like, I can put some, I can dabble a bit in this, right? If you don't have that dabble ability, then I think we need to think about how are we creating the same opportunities for folks like that. That to me it just has to be a priority. If we don't prioritize it as an industry, it's not going to happen. So part of what I want to do is really say, like, again, evidence-based advocacy. We have to demonstrate this is happening. We have to show how it's happening. And we have to really be intentional about creating inclusive models, or we are going to wind up in a world where this is yet another kind of tool of super wealthy people to just kind of like make even more money on top of their money. And that is certainly not what I'm here to do.
That's amazing work.
Thanks.
That's amazing wisdom. Go, Sheila.
It's legacy, right? Like, you think about, what do you want to do? I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, what do I want to be able to say that I at least fought for?
That's super impactful.
So,
yeah.
Thank
you for all the work that you do.
Well,
that's amazing. Tell us more about you and what makes you tick.
what drives the behavior in you to want to fulfill that mission?
A great question. I think I'm bicultural. So I was born and raised in the United States, spent a lot of time in India, and saw a lot of really deep poverty just when I was visiting. I also have a mother who is much more left-leaning and a father who is much more conservative. And so our dinner table was a lot of discussion about, taxes and why they're good or bad, and like unionization and why that matters and all this kind of stuff. My mother, funny story, my grandfather owned a lot of farms in southern India. And my mother was there like with the workers, basically like, union, whatever the equivalent of unionization was, like back in like the 60s in India, she was like all into it, So I had this very different, whereas my dad's like a Reaganite. So it has very, very different influences. And I can understand kind of those predilections, I think. For me, I think just seeing that not everyone in the world has the privilege that I had, and being intimately aware of what life would have been like for me if I did grow up in India versus growing up here. I'm lucky my parents were privileged in India. They were able to emigrate to the United States, right, during very restricted immigration laws, and just the flow of people, like who was allowed to come to the United States and who wasn't. All these things I think are really powerful. So for me in law school, I had the privilege of studying with Professor Lonnie Guinier, who recently passed away. She was a mentor of mine, and I took a class on critical race theory, and I really got to understand how nothing's accidental, how systems were really built deliberately. And either they were built deliberately to include certain folks or prioritize certain folks, or they were built deliberately to exclude others. And both those things are true. And I think the history of racial oppression in the United States is a very obvious example of that. So I sit on boards. I sit on a lot of boards thinking about equal justice, thinking about ACLU. I'm on the board of ACLU Northern California, thinking about people's rights and thinking about how do we create more empowerment in society. It's something that's been important to me throughout my entire life. So, and the studies I've done have kind of just, if anything, they've made that more powerful. And then coming into tech and just seeing at the time, like law even and tech, they were such male-dominated industries. And just seeing, there were challenges. Like I had the credentials, I had the educational background and privilege to be able to enter those spaces and enter them with credibility. And I also was just a kind of person who, through a variety of things that happened in my life, I had a lot of confidence and I wasn't overly burdened by what people thought about me in those spaces, right? I was happy to be in those spaces, and I wasn't ever afraid of speaking up for people more like me in those spaces. From the beginning of when I entered them. But I think that that's unusual, and I recognize it's unusual. And so I always wanted to be able to use my voice and raise my kids, themselves to kind of say, like in our family, we talk a lot about like, how were we kind today? And how did we help? Were we there for somebody today, or someone there for us today? And we celebrate those kinds of things, So it's just compassion and empathy, I think, are just things that are getting lost, I think, in our society. And to me, that's kind of the framework for all these things. But I really think a lot about the fact that, the least among us, right? Like whatever's happening with them is affecting all of us. There's a reason that we're seeing more crime in cities. There's a reason that we're seeing anxiety on the uprise. Like a lot of that's rooted in financial privilege or the lack thereof. And so if there's an opportunity to create more opportunities for others who haven't had access to some of these, these kinds of mechanisms, then to me, that seems like something that's just, it's root cause, it's fundamental to the problem. You can't be focusing on other kinds of things if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, or if you're worried about whether you're going to lose your home. So I don't know, to me, it's been my entire life. And this just seems like the latest instance of something where we have this unique once in a lifetime, once in a generation chance to build a better system. So why wouldn't I put my all and all my energy into trying to see that come to fruition?
That's amazing. That's noble. Being the voice of folks that may not be able to articulate that or have the space to articulate, kind of the financial inclusion or exclusion that they have.
I don't flatter myself, right? I think there are plenty, there are so many, we need to hear from those people because, I didn't grow up like that, and I think there are people that can tell a story that's very personal to them about how, something like crypto provided an opportunity, right? And so I just think those stories need to be told. To the extent that I can draw connections and I can help amplify that, then that's how I see the role. But I think you just need people who do have access, right? I do have access to a lot of spaces that many folks will never have access to. And so I just think it's important to raise awareness and to bring these sensitivities and these understandings into some of those conversations where they don't normally exist.
So when you were a little girl at the dinner table and there was...
Very dramatic. Very dramatic, yes.
Sounds like people with two on opposite spectrums of political spectrum, but still were in love.
Yeah, I mean, we were
Yeah,
certainly a
that's-
family. There was never any question about
Yeah.
that. But I mean,
That's
very,
like- that's
very,
pretty
very
amazing.
vehement disagreement on
Yeah,
these things. You
but
know?
that's but
So
that's super healthy because you got to see both sides of the story, right?
I have seen the ability to forge alliances across
Yeah.
differing political views.
Right.
Let me put it that way.
Exactly.
Right? Like I grew up with that.
At the dinner
I
table.
grew up with that almost every day. You know, there was something going on. And so, you know, it was powerful. And I think that, you know, my parents responded to their immigration story very differently. My mother was always intimately aware of like, well, we were able to come. Not everybody was able to come. My father was like, well, we earned the right to come. Like we did these things. You know, it was a very different approach to these things, right? And when I studied immigration history and immigration law, I was like, oh, my mom is really right on that one. You know, like in the 65 Immigration Act, like doctor who was allowed to come from India and certain other countries, it was like professional doctors primarily, right? There's a reason that doctors in the United States are so many Indian doctors. There's a reason for that. It's our immigration pattern. It's not coincidence, you know? So I think people don't understand these things and they don't realize the impact that these invisible or even like these predate my birth. Like I wasn't born in 65, but these things predate all of that. But there's a reason that so many of my friends who are Indian, who went to certain universities because we had parents who were raised with high education or who were in graduate school. Like, again, it's not a coincidence. And so many of these things I think are invisible to people because they don't pay attention and they just don't realize that policy is like it has such tremendous impact on the trajectory of people's lives. And so the idea to engage in policy at a fundamental level and something as profound as Web3 and the blockchain and crypto, to me, like we are shaping what's going to happen for my great-grandchildren's generation. You know, and we're doing that today, the same way that the 65 Immigration Act shaped the ability of my parents to come here, which is the reason that my children now live in San Francisco and are being raised in this environment. So none of these things are accidental. They're all, you only can make the choices that the world permits you to make in many cases. And we don't really want to admit that, but that's a fact. And so let's make sure that that set of choices is as broad as possible for as many people as possible.
That's impressive and powerful. Very self-aware as well.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, I've had time to reflect in my life.
Yeah. So just to kind of bring it all together here at Stronghold, we are, you know, all about increasing the accessibility and for financial services and technology for all, including, you know, overlooked and underrepresented people, and that includes women, people of color, you know, and we're super aligned with your mission, and you have a ton of experience with TechSoup and WEF and CCI, and you've talked to you have so many data points back to you know, having a history and data, and it sounds like you're just pulling it all together with some of the things that you're doing even today. So you have so many data points. Tell us what is going well and what could we be doing more of?
I think it's things we've touched on. You know, we really need to be recognizing that there's so much talent in this space outside of the usual, you know, graduates of certain institutions or the certain kind of profile that tends to get a lot of attention from the media or from others, right? And amplifying that talent, I think is really important. I think we have new ways of doing that now. I think it's really amazing to be seeing crypto at a time when we have so many different access points for people to, you know, whether it's podcasts or whether it's you know, even YouTube, whatever it is, to kind of get messaging out. But we have to pay more attention to the messages coming from different parts of the world. And so I have my own podcast, Money Reimagined, and we try very much to kind of bring those voices to tell their stories about why this is important and interesting from the empowerment side. But I also think it's just about getting more people into this industry. So we just need to hire. You know, people are like, oh, your team at the forum was all women, like how amazing. And I'm like, really? No, though. I just hired the best people who applied, the best candidates for women. I had an all-women team. And that's just kind of what happened. My starting team here at CCI is also all women. I have some hires I'm announcing shortly that are going to be, you know, women, because that's the best people who applied. So I think we have to just kind of not think about things as unusual anymore. You know, it's not unusual to see talent from people of color, from women, from people who didn't go to elite institutions. It's normal. It's very normal. It's a matter of just seeking out that talent and then growing that talent and making sure you have a culture at every institution or at every company of inclusion to kind of say, like, you're here for a reason. What your perspective really matters. It's important to round out how we're thinking about this brand new thing that nobody really knows. No, there's no one in the world that can claim to understand exactly what's going to happen with Web3 and crypto. That person doesn't exist. A lot of us have good guesses and we have very educated and informed guesses about what could happen, but we don't know what's going to happen. So what's going to happen is going to be dependent on who actually has their hands in shaping this space. So I'm really honored to be in a position where I can help do some of that shaping. And my goal is to create an environment where more and more people can participate actively in this ecosystem and use it to their own benefit and their community and families' benefits. But I also think we need to be taking a broader approach to that and doing it on an industry-wide basis.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tammy.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
really
for
fun.
coming today. And just so we can tell people who are watching, where can we find you on the internets?
Yeah, I'm on all the places. So Twitter, my Twitter handle is at Sheila_Warren. The CCI website is cryptocouncil.org. And I have a podcast, Money Reimagined, on the CoinDesk Network. So those are 3 very easy places to see what I'm up to.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you heard quite a bit of the background in regards to this lady. And just in case you missed her name, she is CEO Sheila Warren of the Crypto Council for Innovation. Now, you guys who may be watching this on the record at some point, who never even heard about Jasmy or don't know much about it, that's okay. One thing I always have talked about in regards to Jasmy is the people who are the connectors, the people who are your plug, if you will. When we talk about policy makers, this lady is a huge, big deal for Stronghold, in my opinion. And obviously, you watch that segment, you'll understand that. You know, it's who better to have as, you know, your not necessarily like a partner, but like an alliance, a strategic partner, if you will, I guess you could say, to help you to understand. You know, as the saying goes, it's not what you know, is who you know. This lady can be absolutely crucial for Stronghold moving forward because of her background. I mean, crying out, it has a JD, understands law, understands policy. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. And the other thing I wanted to get into in this conclusion, because I know this is kind of somewhat of a deep dive in regards to this, is the whole significance of who she is in regards to, you know, the Crypto Council for Innovation, aka CCI. You know, why is the Crypto Council for Innovation a global alliance with, you know, leaders with a mission to demonstrate transformation for, you know, the promise of crypto and communicate, you know, benefits, right? Policymakers. This lady is a policymaker. It's the people that are involved with SHX, and this lady obviously stands out. So she's the head up of this whole thing of CCI, and I thought it was significant. I wanted to share it with you guys because regulatory clarity, I think, is going to come here soon. And you want to see some of these projects, especially lower market cap like SHX, continue to do big things, right? Well, if you have these connections to somebody like this, I think it's a big deal. You know, like I was talking about with Jasmine, there's Genki Oda, right? Policymaker for Japan and so on. And that connection is crucial for Jasmine. Well, what about SHX, right? Again, this particular lady, right, who is Sheila Warren. So, in conclusion, in regards to my research, CCI, in particular, particularly her, is a big deal for numerous reasons. So, it's the industry representation in regards to this, in regards to the Crypto Council for Innovation. This connection, partnership, and so on with SHX definitely brings together leading companies in the crypto industry, creates a unified voice to engage with policymakers, hence her and her connections and everybody that is connected with the Crypto Council for Innovation. But having this whole voice to engage not just with policymakers, but it's also regulators that are part of the whole conglomerate. And basically, this representation can help shape regulations that will very well, you know, foster innovation in regards to mitigating risks. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're trying to bring more of, you know, full scale mass adoption, Well, the people say, like, if we don't have proper regulations, that creates more risk, but it's mitigating the risk through the policymakers and so on, making things, paving the way for the future. By promoting this whole thing of CCI, they aim to educate policymakers. Think about that for a second. I mean, this lady has a JD, like I mentioned, in regards to her law degree, right? She's got a doctorate in law, especially from Harvard. But it's the regulators that are involved and explaining to even the public the benefits of the potential of crypto. I mean, say what you want. This doesn't sound like anything that's damaging, kind of like what COPA claims that they are, you know, doing a good job in which, let's face it, not really. They're suppressing innovation. So I honestly think these guys are the opposite of COPA. But I do feel as though that this is going to help dispel what is referred to misconceptions and build trust in the technology. Like I said, Gilbert Verdi and Quant always talks about the internet of value and the internet of trust. You have somebody like this who understands law and policy. Well, that instills trust. That's a big deal. This lady is, I think, huge for SHX. All right, a couple more things we'll talk about. It creates global perspective. There's all sorts of different perspectives in regards to this, but CCI, which she represents, she's the head person, takes a global view of the crypto industry, and they help advocate, of course, for more of the policies that will very well benefit the entire ecosystem. And for SHX to be part of the Stellar ecosystem, that in itself is also big, not just for Stronghold, but also for Stellar moving forward. I mean, say what you want. For all we know, she could have been one of the people that was consulted from Stellar when it came to building this whole blueprint from that new white paper. We don't know that, but you want to know something? I want to put past it. So this whole thing in regards to, the companies and the regions that are involved with this global perspective, you're going to see more people like her advocate for the whole concept of inclusive regulation. And think about that for a second. So CCI pushes for regulations that are fair, go to their site, transparent, and they also consistently promote responsible innovation. Think about that for a second. Responsible innovation. They also recognize standards. So all these guys work together for a greater purpose, for a common goal. And I, looked at it from the perspective that I feel as though it can definitely help create a regulatory environment that supports the growth of the entire crypto industry, but especially ones that meet these standards and criteria for actual utility in motion and benefiting people, whether their background, like she was mentioning in that video. But I want to get into this last part, and basically it's like this. The CCI partnership, and also with the whole thing is Stronghold, because I mean, let's face it, that's why we're talking about this and why I feel as though it's significant to share with you. The details of the specific partnership, while it may not seem public if you try to look it up, you have to keep in mind there's already potential benefits. I mean, to sit down and talk to a lady like this and she recognizes Stronghold's potential, well, you got to keep in mind there's still NDAs and maybe they can't come out 100% public about that, but come on. I mean, to sit down, for instance, with, Stronghold's Tammy Camp, I mean, that's a big deal. And they have this. This has already been established since 2022. When I got more into the benefits of CCI and Stronghold, I came to the conclusion that there's so many benefits. So 4 key things I want to talk about just real quick before we wrap it up. And that is, it will enable what is referred to as enhanced reputation for specifically like, SHX. How so? Well, being associated with a respected industry organization such as CCI can very well enhance Stronghold's reputation, but it's also the credibility among who? Well, come on, don't overthink about it. It's the policymakers, but it's also regulators and potential customers moving forward. That's a win for all of us that hold the Stronghold token. What about policy advocacy? CCI itself can advocate for policies that benefit Stronghold's business model, such as supporting specific types of digital assets and even regulatory clarity for certain activities. How so? Through this lady and her organization. That is a big, huge win for us as Stronghold token holders. Let's just be honest about that. What about the whole thing of, for instance, like further insights about the whole thing? Hear me out. CCI provides its members with research and insights into the latest developments, of course, in the crypto industry. That's going to be valuable for Stronghold's strategic planning. By being able to get information about what's going to happen on the near horizon, as the saying goes, maybe before things happen, as far as the public persona of mainstream news, gives SHX the one up compared to the competition. It's kind of like tomorrow's news today. So in conclusion, while partnering with CGI may very well help SHX navigate all these particular things for these complexities and regulatory, the environment in regards to regulations, you got to keep in mind, I think it's going to help SHX's business goals moving forward. I hope that they will continue to embrace this unofficial partnership. But man, I mean, for SHX to be at the market cap it is and already have these connections in place, it's not only a huge win for Stronghold, but it's a huge win also for the Stellar ecosystem moving forward. So with that said, this is going to conclude the Stronghold segment of the night. I know I'm very behind in the comments. I'm going to get into it. The last bit of coverage that we have tonight is an update from Hara in regards to Jasmy. You want to stick around for that segment if Jasmy is your thing. Let's go ahead and check the comments while we're at it. All right, so what do we have here that is new? And let's see here. See, we got anything specific. TDM says, what percentage of portfolio should I allocate Jasmy to? I can't give you any financial advice. You're going to have to make that decision for yourself. And it also depends on your budget. I don't know, everybody's got a different type of budget, maybe that's not the answer you want, but, maybe some community people can give you some heads up on that. I'm not going to do that, though. Sorry about that. All right. GS, welcome back. Boom. You like chess? That's cool. All right. I learned something new that I never noticed before in chess. There's a certain rule about something about your pawn going 2 steps forward, and I think it's like within the first move or something like that. And if the other guy meets you also there, depending on whose turn, they can do a diagonal kill move, which makes no sense to me. And I thought my friend was cheating. I was like, that's a bullcrap move. I never heard of that in my life. And then he looked it up and showed me. And he's like, yeah, it's a real rule. It's a real thing. It's like, I never knew about that. I forgot what it was called. If you know chess, you already know what I'm talking about. Anyway. All right, let's see here. Nathan says, cool. Yes, Stellar has it all. This is a while ago. Sorry about that. Except promotion, basically every platform. All right, I'm going to go further down because I'm way behind. You guys talking about a lot about boobies and stuff like that. That's all right. Lorenzo, welcome back. Hey, man. Good to see you. And let's go further down. Let's see what we have. You guys got any specific questions? All right. I would agree with this statement. Yes. All right. Dennis Lil. XLM ETF is like owning, the network. Railroad tracks, which would benefit the rail cars, SHX, Velo, Aquarius. I covered Velo once before. I probably should do a better job covering that more. I don't know. There's Aquarius. There's a lot of things. There's only so much time in one day. Let's just be honest. I get requests from people. I mean, nothing against people, but like, I got a lot of requests. Can you cover this? Can you do this? Can you do? It's like only so much time in one day. You know what I mean? All right. Corey Bibe. ETF for Stellar could basket everything built on the Soroban platform. That's a good statement. Lorenzo, he bought 5 million UGK on lobster. The ish tripled overnight. Not enough liquidity in Uganda through Stellar to really see a good cash out. You're also adding Litecoin to the portfolio tomorrow. On lobster, believe it or not, LTC and XLM got a little shindig going on low key. LOL, just a little sneaky. Oh, I was never aware of that. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. All right. Let's go further down. You guys talking about some Koopa, Bowser. All right. All right. Let's see here. What else you guys got going on? Siobhan Wells. The fluid in the identity. Maybe that's what you're trying to say. Like the Guten Tag, the Liechtenstein exchange. So anyway, welcome, Siobhan. Glad to have you here. Let's get into welcoming Sean. He says, "Go SHX." Thank you for being here, Sean. We Roan. That's a cool looking bald eagle. Yes, an XRP ETF will be supported by SHX. The CEO of SHX said that their company, I should say, is all about creating value. That's cool. Deaton for Senate and Passant is hard sayings. All right. Welcome, hard sayings. I don't know if that's an innuendo or some kind of funny reference, but that's okay. All right. Thank you guys who are here. We're going to get into the last part of the coverage tonight. And basically speaking, it is Jasmy. So let me go ahead and clear out some tabs. And we're going to get into that here shortly in just a bit. Let's clear that one out. And what is this one? Hold on. Let's clear this one out. All right. I know where we're at. So let me turn back on some of the branding. Excuse me. And where's the one I want? Here we go. There we go. All right. Thank you for being patient. Jasmy coverage. Some of you guys feel as though maybe that should have been at the beginning, but you got to keep in mind we covered Jasmy yesterday, and this is not a super long segment tonight anyway. But anyway, I want to get into some key things in its regards to the latest tweet from Sun. So, Jasmy's your thing. Please smash the like. Take a look at this. This is straight from Hara earlier today. And he posted this roughly, what was it? 6:30 a.m. Okay. He states that there was an article that was published in regards to Tech Plus. Now, think about this for a second. I'm not saying that the reason why Jasmy pumped was because of this. No, not at all. If anything, it's because some of the recent news in regards to like certain laws passing in Japan, and we talked about that yesterday. I don't want to get into that again, but look into it, right? Hara posted, Web3 technology is, quote, a catalyst for local development, tokenizing local products and culture. Now, I want to state this. I've been talking about this for, good God, I mean, at least a year that I know of, because we talked about the pairings of what? Local, Japanese yen denominated stablecoins. Maybe you guys get tired of me talking about that. I don't know. I don't see why you would. But this solidifies all that. Okay? And if anything, to have a magazine interview this gentleman, as we know, that's part of the whole Jasmy team, right? The management team, I think is a big deal. So I decided to click on the link. It does interpret it from Japanese English. Some of it's kind of lost in translation. Excuse me. But it's worth pointing out. So I wanted to get into this whole thing. And if anything, I'm gonna pull this up. Okay. Basically, here it is. And it's from a site, if you guys want to go to, it's called news.mynavi.jp, like my Navy, but instead of Navy with a Y, Navy with an I. It's this part right here. It says basically in regards to achieving traceability using blockchain. Now, there's another company that's currently kind of doing this, right? Or are they not? Hedera. This is Jasmy we're talking about. So Again, understand different areas of the world, but it's worth pointing out. Now, there's more to it on this particular site, and I didn't want to make it a super deep dive. I just want to get to some key things. But what I decided to bring to you guys tonight, as far as significance, is this part where it says from, this publication, is where it says achieving traceability using blockchain, and it talks about data falsification. What is that? Well, it's a threat, like it says, when communicating on the web. Especially back in the 2010s, many counterfeit semiconductor devices were on the market. Why am I pointing this out? The big news that dropped yesterday, again, watch the previous Jasmy video. If you don't want to watch the whole deep dive, you can go towards the end, and I outline about this whole thing, about this whole, big news about the semiconductors and so on. So counterfeit semiconductors were on the market. There's probably still a lot as we speak. But it says a measure to reduce the outflow of counterfeit semiconductor products to the market, the Japan Region of Industry Organization, which is called SEMI, SEMI, is leading the way by standardizing traceability using blockchain. Now, think about this for a second. I always talk about standards, and especially when it comes to ISO TC 307, the quant network standards. And no, I'm not doing a quant Jasmy duo again tonight. That's not it. But again, standards are significant because you realize, just like anything, like a mattress, there's a standard for a mattress, there's standard for tables, there's standards for everything, cars, you name it, right? Everything has some kind of form of a standard. But the whole thing of standardizing traceability using blockchain is a big deal. And when you get into this part where it says hashing the block containing the transaction history using blockchain tech and writing hash value to the next block, the transaction history is connected to traceability and how that becomes basically possible. Again, this has an interview with, a member of the Jasmy management team. But it says it's a big advantage that the entire process from manufacturing to sales channels is borderless. And I like this statement. Local industries prevent illegal leakage of sake. Sake. Some of you guys, I don't know if you ever drank sake before. It's not all that bad. Some people do sake bombers, right? I'm not much of a drinker anymore myself, right? But, once in a while, I wouldn't mind having something like that. But it's a big thing, obviously, in Japan. But like it says, the label itself is electrical. And when the package is open, the electrical wires break, indicating that the package has been opened. Not only will you know which brewery made the sake, but you will also receive proof of the opening. There is no need to worry about replacing the contents. And to have the whole thing, tied into blockchain DLT and so on, it is a big deal. I've covered this whole thing about NCCC, and I don't want to get into another thing about this, but I decided to get in just a brief thing about this once again. And it's this statement. Blockchain traceability expected to be applied to carbon credits, which have been attracting attention in recent years. Carbon credits issued as credits, emission rights for the reduction effect, right? Some of you guys don't like, me talking about this, but let's face it, Jasmy's got a big thing part of this, especially with the Rice Crop Consortium, the NCCC. But this reference about financial inclusion, or the whole thing of the digitalization or securitization of assets, references everything that we've been talking about for over a year. And I think this is crucial to understand this. And again, get more to the point here in a bit. It's an outline. This is a big article and there's a lot to read, but it says up until now, companies and wealthy individuals have been the main users when it comes to the securitization of assets. But issuance aimed at small-scale investments by individuals by expanding Mitsui & Co. Digital Asset Management and Sony Bank, think about that, have started selling security tokens, digital securities, in small amounts of 100,000 yen. Now, again, that's convenient because you got to keep in mind it's the connections to Jasmy, right? When we made a big deal about who holds all these assets that's connected to Jasmy, and we were like, well, there's Sony Bank, obviously, former Sony executives. Mitsui and Co. You had other examples that we talked about. What was the other one from a while back? Yeah, Mitsubishi UFJ Trust, banking. But again, everything that's labeled here is a confirmation of what we talked about for over a year now. And when you get more down to the nitty gritty, it talks about currently there's this whole thing of being able to use existing accommodation facilities, such as hotels. We talked about that on the last show. It talks about in the future there will be likely more facilities, but it's these systems and having IoT tied into these systems and tracking data, so on and so forth. Again, this further solidifies what I'm trying to talk about for over a year, and here it is. Legalization of stablecoins. The foreign stablecoins that were banned from last year, or maybe before last year, right? Last year, sorry, was Circle and Tether, but Circle got unbanned. And as we mentioned, these are the enablers that bring in volume. But I also talked about the local currency. So look at what it says. The legalization of stablecoins making it possible to build local currencies. When it comes to crypto, it's the pairings that are your plugs, your connectors. And we know that basically through other things like USDC pairings with Stellar, with everything, Tether with everything, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, everything. Says we must not forget about the procurement of funds from all over Japan, but also the local currency that circulates the local economy. A boom began around 99, and at one time there were nearly 300 copies issued, but that number since plummeted to about half. The reason is high operating costs. At the time, paper publications, which are the norm, it was a bit difficult to manage, and the fees paid to issuing companies were not cheap. Distribution volume did not increase. There was problems, so on and so forth. You will see an update here about this. It says the enforcement of about Revised Payment Services Act in 2023, June 2023, became possible to issue stablecoins backed by legal currency. Issuance is limited to businesses with license, such as banks, trust companies, funds transfer companies. Seems likely that the day when local banks create digital community currencies will be born soon. Look at what that says. This is, I guess you could say, the juicy part. Local banks with the local stablecoins, the Japanese yen denominated stablecoins. The pairings are a big deal for Jasmy. Because again, back to this part, digital community currencies, whether it's JPY, whether it's the DD coin, and whether it's Jasmy. Hokuku Bank, what a name. Probably not pronounced that right. Already announced plans to distribute a stablecoin in Ishikawa Prefecture that uses blockchain distributed ledger, whose value is linked to the Japanese yen. And if you were wondering, will it ever mention Jasmy? Well, of course it's going to. Why would Hara post it and show a face of a person that's part of the Jasmy management team? So look at this. And I know I went through a lot, and maybe some people are like, you could have just went to the bottom. I understand. Also kind of, it's been a long, long day and night, so bear with me. But yes, it does reference Jasmy. And it's so cool to be able to finally share some things and have it recognized in local publications, obviously in Japan, about a lot of the things we've been talking about. Not just me, but Jesse, KIR Finance, Rob, many other people part of this Jasmy community, keeping you guys informed in regards to the nitty gritty. Okay, here's some of that more of that nitty gritty. So it says the Financial Services Agency, which is the FSA, right? We know that Genki Oda is part of that, has expressed reservations about stablecoins backed by bank deposit accounts. Unclear whether they will become a reality. For this reason, it is expected that methods creating digital money similar to conventional electronic money at low cost using a mechanism similar to that of crypto assets, my God, blockchain tech will become widespread. I just lost that page. That's not good. Let me jump back. Okay, cool. All right. I just opened up another one. Sorry about that. So will become widespread. When we talk about can Jasmy have things to, really work with the local government, really work with doing big things? Will there be more that, mass adoption? Think about everything that they built in the crypto winter and those connections they had in place and all the people that said, "Oh, this is not a big deal. I just want to see the price of action now." Again, Rome wasn't built in a day. What Jasmy's trying to do with Society 5.0 is not built in a day. We're not even at Society 5.0 yet. But you see here, Jasmy, I can't interpret this from the screenshot, but it states this: characteristics of Japanese yen stablecoin, says you got to have this whole thing of tamper resistance and traceability of blockchain. Things such as local specialties can be turned to digital assets. People can be used to prove the identity of producers, distributors, and money. I remember I did the whole thing talking about, a combination of Jasmy, audio, right? The tokenization of music, right? Not specifically Jasmy, but recognizing the Sony connection. And Sony had a patent many years ago that they got criticism about in regards to kicking things over in regards to royalties. I don't want to get into that so much, but this whole thing about proving the identity of producers and distributors and money, think about it. If you have a PDL, wouldn't the PDL help secure the privatization of who these people are and their intellectual property and so on and so forth? Well, yeah. So it says to prove the identity and money in the form of digital currency. Digital currency would be the likes of your Jasmy. Was born, hence the Bitcoin in Japan. Jasmy. What was previously thought to be a digital world, by using blockchain tech, is now possible to digitally prove even the physical resources of a real life. It was decided that it would be done. I would hope that this will be used to expand various new regional revitalization measures in the future. And again, who is this? It's Mr. Hidehiko Kakinuma. Now, I get it. I didn't have his name memorized. I remember all the other guys. A lot of times it's kind of hard to keep up with all these Japanese names. No offense. But I have done a deep dive about him. And he is, like it says, in charge of product and service planning, business planning, marketing. As we know, this is one of the criticisms Jasmy gets, is not enough good of a job of marketing. But we did confirm this a while back that after joining Sumitomo Bank, currently Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corp, right? He, as in Hidehiko Kakinuma, was in fact second to GR Home Net, which is currently NTT Plala. He started the ISP business. So he really understands like the concept of how the internet works and so on. Who better to lead something like Jasmy, in the charge of Web3 than somebody that has this type of background? Excuse me. Engaged in raising after moving to Sony, he was involved in establishment and business launch of Sony Bank. And again, for everybody saying that, Jasmy's not going to do hardly anything when it comes to finance democracy, you already have that plug. You already have that connect. Who is that? Well, it's two people, really. Genki Oda, like we talked about before, but somebody that's actually working with Jasmy who already worked with Sony. That's always going to exist. He was also in charge of marketing service for Sony Style. We've talked about this, right? But it's where he worked after that. And look what it says for a second. Worked as the product development manager, sales planning manager at Aon Bank, and then established Aon Alliance Life Insurance. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Launched his business, became director, participating in Jasmy from February 2022. Literally, that's 2 years now with Jasmy. So that's not too bad to see stuff like that. Now, why get into this just because it's from Hara? No. But the reason why I'm bringing it to you guys is because you got to keep in mind there's so much that's worth mentioning. So, we know that data falsification is definitely a threat. The whole thing of local industries that try to prevent illegal leakage of whether it's sake or whatever the heck it is, they don't want their data to be leaked out, whether it's no matter what it's worth, whether it's healthcare data or like somebody stealing like sake receipts or something. But whatever the case be, The significance of all this is that blockchain traceability in combating data falsification is a real thing. And ensuring product authenticity is, like it said earlier in the article, multifaceted. So Jasmy itself will help create the whole thing of reducing counterfeiting. Counterfeiting exists everywhere. It's not just the United States, right? But in particularly Japan, Jasmy can allow with the PDL the whole mechanism of creating an immutable record of a product's journey from manufacturing, of course, to sale. Blockchain, through Jasmy's particular function, will make it much more harder to introduce counterfeit goods, of course, to market. That is a disruptor. And why is that such a big deal? Well, a lot of you guys hold VeChain, and one of the main key selling points is the concept that, like with VeChain, of being able to have a mechanism through the utility of VeChain, for instance, to go down to, and I'll use this example again, like like a, I guess you could say, go down to like a dock in New York, for instance, right? And there's two forms of black market. There's the black market that has stolen goods that have real products, like your polo shirts and your polo parkas, or your real Air Jordans, right? That's a black market. And then there's the other black market where it's literally fake goods and they're not real. But to be able to have something that's going to scan to see if these are real, real products that came from real factories and so on, right? That's game changer stuff. But for Jasmy to already have in the PDL a mechanism that is going to be able to confirm if these are counterfeit goods that are going into market, doesn't that benefit the economy, right? It benefits both countries where it's coming in and out of. So that in itself is a big deal, because now we're talking about not just Jasmy when it comes to the concept of, finance democracy and data democracy, but also trade, which, let's face it, we always talk about XTC in that regard, or VeChain, your Morpheus networks, and so on. So to have Jasmy even access that part of the utility layer, I think is a big deal. The tamper-proof nature, of course, of blockchain, and particularly Jasmy, ensures that any altercation to the data is detectable, deterring potential counterfeiters. Why? The whole concept of a personal data locker, be able to confirm what is immutable, what is future-proof. So I want you guys to keep in mind this, about four more things, right? This creates a level of enhanced transparency. And when the government understands that Jasmy is the first of its kind, or, the Bitcoin is Japan and regulatory compliant and so on, that creates more of that trust. Like the title says, is Jasmy basically becoming platinum data? Think about that for a second. Platinum data. They boast the whole thing of, platinum data with harmony, or platinum data, with trust. Okay. So if Bitcoin, as in BTC, is supposedly, digital gold, then I think you should call Jasmy basically digital, platinum data. I mean, we talk about data being the new gold. In regards to that, it's literally, platinum data. And they boast that. That's even mentioned in the white paper. I'm not making that up. So I do feel as though that this is going to create that level of transparency, build trust, not just among institutions, but in regards to even retail consumers. And this whole thing that was mentioned in regards to this article, you got to keep in mind that, like, Jasmy, this mechanism with the PDL will help streamline supply chain, like we were just talking about, which can lead to efficiency gains, cost reductions. It's a win-win for everybody. But being able to automate a mechanism that will allow data exchange and verification of just that, the data, to eliminate manual processes, paperwork. I mean, my God, who wants to get rid of paperwork? I think everybody wants to get rid of paperwork. Like even snail mail. How many times you go pay a bill, it says, hey, would you like the option to go paperless? Yeah, I want the option to go paperless. I don't need to get a bunch of junk mail anymore in my mailbox. I know what I owe. It does save time and resources. But back to the whole thing about Jasmy. when it comes to Super Wallet, we're going to see some things in regards to apps. We're going to see some new applications. So let's talk about this for a second. So Jasmy, the potential in regards to its particular blockchain and extending itself beyond, traditional industries, is highlighted in the example of sake, um, in regards to the article. Keep in mind that even that industry in itself, um, that's a big industry, right? Especially in Japan. I mean, a lot of Japanese people drink sake. So it will prevent illegal activities and it will help ensure product integrity, of course, not just in the sake industry, but various different other sectors. Now, in regards to a little bit more Jasmy moving forward, by leveraging their particular blockchain solution, this whole thing of traceability presents several opportunities for Jasmy and especially us as in the token holders. I mean, we're all excited to see Jasmy up over 90%. Big things. I mean, our portfolios are blasting off, right? So let's talk about just, was it 3 things in conclusion before we wrap it up? I know I said I wanted to do a deep dive, but it's kind of becoming a deep dive. It's this new business model, all right? Jasmy, believe it or not, yes, a new business model. Think about this for a second. They can explore developing new business models around data ownership, identity management, and other areas enabled by blockchain, of course, traceability. I think that should be the highlight of tonight's discussion, is traceability, immutability. Is this future proof? This in itself could involve creating platforms for data exchange. Well, of course, Jasmy is trying to create a decentralized data exchange, right? The opposite of what GAFA is, right? And with that said, they offer verification, certification services, partnering with industry players to develop what? Customizable, tailored solutions towards whatever need is necessary by securing data. That in itself is worth, oh my gosh, billions, maybe trillions. Actually, I should say maybe. Last video, what did we talk about? 5.5 trillion estimate to 12 point something trillion. And why is that important? Because it makes you realize that if Jasmy just has 1% of that IoT, how much would that be worth? Well, we know that. I did the calculation on it. $55 billion. All right. And that's just off of that one sector of IoT. What about other sectors of IoT? So this is big. And that doesn't even count some of these other things. So at the end of the day, by building trust and credibility through the government and all these local institutions and even ones abroad, by actively promoting and implementing blockchain tech and traceability solutions, again, back to the whole main subject, Jasmy itself can very well establish itself as the premier leader in trust and transparency within this entire digital ecosystem. And on top of that, it gets better. This reputation is going to attract new partners, customers, of course, fostering more of that long-term growth because they see what? This is working. This is the future. This is Web3. And these guys already got the partners. They already built and they survived through all the FUD of crypto winter and so on. And look, this thing is taken off. So in conclusion, whether it's blockchain that has other types of forms of traceability, or if it's specifically Jasmy, because that's what we're talking about tonight, it does hold a significant potential by combating data falsification. No kidding. And also ensuring that product authenticity gets to go across everywhere for the most part. Various different industries, right? Not just the whole thing of sake. But by capitalizing on its expertise and exploring new applications, Jasmy itself, again, your key takeaway, can position itself as the number one key player in this transformative technology, and especially to become number one for Japan. I thought this was crucial. I thought it was a big deal. Obviously, Hara thinks it's a big deal, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. So with that said, let me know what you think in regards to this. Traceability was considered future-proof. Is Jasmy going to provide that for Japan? I think the answer is yes. And if anything, you see how big that's starting to evolve especially with what you've seen lately with price action. It's the industries that build in the background, especially during crypto winter. They lay down the framework. Everybody wants to see price action then. You have to first build on a solid foundation. They already done that. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching tonight's coverage for Jasmy and all this other stuff. That concludes the show. I will check into the comments, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, because we're going about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So let's see who we got up in the comments. All right. Let's see what we have. The World Economic Forum. Ja, voor opus. Interessant is the chess move. All right. Passing by. Interesting. All right. Bernard B, thanks again for the great deep dives. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks and welcome back. FBK Nismo. I don't speak French, but thank you for being here. And let's see here. Jasmy Scam. MK Scam. Guys are funny. Jasmy pumping again. Is it really? Let me see. I would like to see if it is. Let's pull up that real quick in regards to Jasmy. And is it really pumping again? And it's pumping again. My God. Let's take a look at that real quick. Let's pull this up on the screen. Thank you so much from Corey Bebe, aka Beebs. Zoom out. Yes, you see it. Look at that, guys. On the 1 hour, it's doing something again. 4.35%. So is the Asian market waking up because Max does long shows? Well, not because I do long shows, but you know, that market is waking up. And yeah, so something's going on with that. Up 27% last 24 hours. And you know, 99% on the 7 days. So we already increased 8% since the start of the show. We were at 92% for the 7-day chart. Now we're increasing on it. That is super cool. Will we hit? Man, we might hit 2 cents. Am I reading that right? 0.01 and then 19. Yeah, we could hit 2 cents. Wow. My God. You know what I mean? Who's complaining about that? That would be incredible. I don't know. We might not hit that, but you know, that would be incredible. We'll have to see what happens. All right. Dinosaur scam. You guys are crazy. Man with parting hair scam. Who the heck is that? All right, let's see here. Hard sayings. Digital ID is an unspoken requirement for tokenization of assets to be reality. A lot of people, including me, would have a problem with this. Oh, yeah, but you got to keep in mind, different culture, all right? I understand that if you try to take these concepts of Society 5.0 to like here in Arizona or Texas, probably not going to fly over too well, right? But again, understanding that just because we don't agree with those particular things, it's a different, you know, it's just different culture. And also there's still value. I mean, I might not be all raw about everything they're doing over there, but also I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and not, you know, choose to invest in some of the stuff. I mean, as the saying goes, like, pick your poison. I mean, Hedera, carbon credits, Jasmy, carbon credits, Stellar, the World Economic Forum. I mean, we can go on and on and on about this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's like, if we're really going to get hardcore about the nitty gritty about like what to be, you know, what you're going to belong to. I mean, what is it? Just stick with Bitcoin. That's it. You know, some people say, yeah, exactly, Max. That's why I'm here. Hey, I get it, man. We're all going to do what we're going to do. Right. Beebs. Buffett is falling off a stool while staring at boobs. Broken hip scam. Oh my God. Well, at least you guys are having a good time. Kingdom Sam, welcome back. Hello. Yes, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Welcome back, Kingdom Sam. If we're being honest and transparent, XLM has greater significance in terms of utility and technology than XRP. Both useful, but XLM now with the update is on another level. Yes, I would say so. I mean, you know, what's that guy's name? Bobby Jonas or something like that. Do you guys ever notice that guy? I mean, nothing against him. I mean, I'm always glad about people that support the channel. But every time I do an XDC video, he would always be like, you know, XDC is the real Ethereum killer. XDC is something, something. I forgot how he says it. He goes to every channel, every comment, and he types it. I don't mind it because it kind of triggers the algorithm. But in reality, I don't look at just like XDC. I really look at like what one currently speaking would be, you know, the Ethereum killer, if you will. Well, I don't know about being a killer. You know, I don't think Ethereum is just going to go away overnight, right? Let's be real about that. That's like saying McDonald's is going away. You know, there's more McDonald's than any other fast food hamburger joint, right? You know, McDonald's is here to stay. You got to look at that from that perspective. I mean, In-N-Out Burger is a way higher quality, you know, fast food, and they're not even a franchise, technically speaking. They're privately owned, but the quality of In-N-Out compared to, you know, McDonald's is a night and day difference. So is XLM the Ethereum killer? Is XDC the Ethereum killer? No. But if they can disrupt those and put a dent into it, then what does that mean for us? That's huge for us. And that's why I made a big deal about the whole thing of Soroban, because I do feel as though that anything that is going to be a threat to Ethereum is a big deal. And that's why Solana is still doing well, because they have already established themselves as being a key smart contract platform that disrupts a lot of things that Ethereum does through smart contracts, NFTs, the whole shebang. We may not like the idea that Solana's network goes down. That's beyond the point. That blockchain still has value, tremendous amount of value. There are all the people that were saying that, you know, don't be the exit liquidity for FTX. I mean, everything's a risk. You know, I didn't go with my gut. I was real close with it. I said to myself, and it was $9. You know, and I think Tim Shea pointed out that, you know, Solana was like down to 7 or 8, but it would have been good to get into that. You know, I don't know about early retirement, but I think I could have made like an extra over $100,000 on that particular play. But it is what it is. You live and you learn. But the point is, Solana represents about 5% of the overall, you know, smart contracts for the overall crypto market. And, you know, Ethereum is like 25 to 30%. So if you think about it, like there's anywhere from 30 to 35% of the overall market is still dominated in smart contracts from those two. If Stellar gets involved, which I should say if they are. So it's just like, I still shake my head. I see people, they're like, oh man, you know, Stellar hasn't moved all these years. Of course it hasn't moved all these years. Did they have Soroban back then? No, they didn't. Now they have something that I think is a huge deal. And we'll see what happens. All right. Kingdom Sam, so much hype around XRP and people willingly stay blind to what XLM is doing and building. I like both, personally. I get your point. When Moon, yeah. Too bad. I think Ahmed already left earlier, but you know, he always says that too. All right. What else you guys got? You guys got a conversation among each other, which is good. Blackwood is here. Good to see you. Jasmine got the running shoes on. Yes, got the Forrest Gump, you know, run for Jenny shoes on. Anyway, that's so bad. XYO is also moving. That's probably gonna be one that I'm gonna regret later for not getting, but I'm fully aware of it. Like I said, there's ones I'm into, there's ones you guys are into, and that's just the way it goes, you know. You can't be into everything unless your name is Elon Muff. All right. Kingdom Sam, Max, always giving the best dives when it comes to XLM, Quant, BSV, Jasmy, etc. Thanks, man. I do appreciate that. Crypto Smith is in the house. Sean the Crypto Smith. We got to love him. He may be rough around the edges once in a while. He may, you know, surprise the hell out of you by making a random X post and telling everybody to go F themselves. But he is not going to, you know, he's not going to apologize for being who he is. My God. Sean, we love you, brother. Glad to have you here. Glad that you're relaxed and enjoying some games and stuff like that. I played my first video game on Sunday. I decided to take the day off. Battlefield 5 with an old friend of mine. First time I played a video game since September. Man, I was rusty. And I got back into playing and so on. Dominated. Felt good. But I did watch some of your videos. You know, You are getting better. That game looks fun. I might even have that game. You're gonna have to tell me what that game is. I was gifted that on like a Steam sale or something like that, and I think I tried it out. It looks very similar to what you're playing, and I kind of wonder if I actually have the game. I actually have a racing wheel that is like new. Hold on a second. I'm about to sneeze. All right, excuse me. But give Sean the Cryptosmith a follow. Again, he does the whole crypto thing. I mean, he's taking a break, but he also has a gaming channel for that racing game. Let us know what racing game it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway. All right. But yeah, Blackwood's in the house. Glad to have you. Blackwood, brother Blackwood, Selmo Fudd, 937. So I think Selmo might still be here. Always appreciate seeing Selmo. Very much looking forward to hopefully another matchup with the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that's going to be a great matchup for a future playoff series. I want to see a rematch of that from last year. I think that's going to be a great series. Hopefully, go 7 games. All right, so let's see. Richie Rich in the house. You're very welcome. Not the Crypto Smith anymore, just the Smith. Yeah. It's good stuff. I mean, it's just, it's like, let me see what's going on next. It's like one night I was kind of tired and kind of, woke up out from my desk, and I woke up to your tweet of telling her their sauce. God. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. It is what it is, right? Anyway, you're welcome. Thanks for the apple. That's interesting. All my time of a teacher, I received 1 apple, which was kind of cool, and it wasn't just any apple; it was a candy apple, which was cool. Not a candy apple. I'm sorry, Granny Smith apple with caramel all over it. It was pretty darn good. Fattening as hell, but it was good. I did thank the kid. Anyway, those kids are now 6th graders. Interesting. All right, let's see here. What else we got? You sold 50% of your XRP. Well, everybody has the reasons for doing what they got to do. All right. Selmo Fudd. Maximus Crypto shares something about Black history. Okay, I will. So, I was actually talking to my friend, the guy that I was playing that game with, basically, when did we play that game? Sunday. So Battlefield 5. That has nothing to do with Black history. But one of the cool things we were talking about was some of our old family that have passed away and so on. So he was talking about on, I think, his side of the family, some of the people that served in World War II. And I was telling him, I said, you know what? I said, one of the coolest things, and I think I might have shared this with some of you guys in the past, not necessarily you, Selma, but one of the cool things I said to him was, I got to spend 2 Thanksgivings with my cousin Damien, or cousin-in-laws, if you want to be technical, Damien Olu back in the 90s. And it was so cool hearing, let's face it, war stories from an actual Tuskegee Airman. Okay. So believe it or not, you guys want to talk about history. I used to teach history. All right. I don't anymore because I'm no longer a school teacher, but love to teach history, and in particular, anything related to World War II. Okay. So he would tell us about some of these stories of, being a Tuskegee Airman. And apparently it was a real thing. They did start off with like P-40, so that's not BS. The Warhawk. And basically speaking, they had to prove themselves. Let's face it. I mean, a lot of the white squadrons got the best stuff. So, you're using, we talk about outdated tech like Ethereum. Well, those pilots back then had to use, for instance, an outdated P-40 Warhawk. But they made the best of what they had. And then later on, the U.S. Army Air Forces, because they didn't have the Air Force back then, as we know, decided to, hey, we need to allocate these guys with better planes. Along came, for instance, the P-51 Mustang, which, by the way, even to this day, for those who are aviation enthusiasts, is the fastest propeller-driven plane of all time. I mean, it's amazing. So there were stories that I heard about, my dad heard about as well, and that is towards the end of World War II, 1945, we're like, is this Hollywood BS or is it really true that some members of the Tuskegee Airmen took their P-51 Mustangs in a dogfight against a Messerschmitt Me-262 and in a dive kept up with the Me-262? Now, keep in mind, if you're not aware of all this stuff, the Me-262 was the first jet fighter ever, okay? And they just didn't make enough of them in production, you know what I mean? And, but it was a big deal. I mean, can you imagine going to combat as a fighter pilot and trying to keep up with it? Well, the pilots of the Tuskegee Airmen discovered that in a dive with their P-51 Mustang, they could keep up with a Me-262 jet fighter. I mean, you know how badass that sounds to be able to tell a story. So he's telling us some of these stories and so on. And you got to keep in mind, Black history without even realizing it's Black history, all right? Because I'm looking at it like I'm just trying to learn about history. It doesn't matter what race a person is, right? If you want to be technical, I thought that was one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard. My dad and I would always go to air shows. I mean, we were real big on it. My dad's dream was to be a fighter pilot. He didn't make it because, he had problems with his sinuses and so on, like green mucus. It was horrible, but that was his dream. He could have made it to be a fighter pilot if he was born 10 years earlier, but nope. Being, finishing the rank of corporal, he got deployed to go to the Korean War. His dream was to fly a F-86 Sabre jet. That didn't happen, but it is what it is, So right before his deployment, the war came to an end. It got canceled. He was one of the lucky ones. But long story short, yes, my cousin Damien Olu, cousin-in-laws, whatever you want to call it, their grandfather, right? He passed away, I think, in 2011 or something like that. Former member of the famed Tuskegee Airmen. And here's another tidbit I want to share with you guys. Another thing they mentioned was, and this is true also, like if you guys ever seen the movie Red Tails or anything like that, or the one that actually called the Tuskegee Airmen, right, with Lawrence Fishburne, the HBO special. So that is all historically accurate in regards to some of the things that they mentioned. And yes, it is true that the Tuskegee Airmen never lost a single B-17 bomber. Think about it for a second. A P-51 Mustang, what's the P stand for? Pursue. Okay. So, and then later on, it was called F-51 Mustang, and we don't even have any Ps anymore, right? It's just, F-15s, F-22s, right? Fighter. But back in the days of World War II, is P meant pursue. And so the Tuskegee Airmen were specifically instructed, look, nothing against the white pilots, right? But the other squadrons are trying to rack up their kills, trying to make a name for themselves. Some of these guys want to become an ace and, be legendary and stuff like that. But the Tuskegee Airmen never lost a single B-17 bomber because they focused on pursuing, like what's meant to do, right? You're a P-51 Mustang, you pursue and you stick with the bombers. And it's your objective, no matter what, to make sure you stick with those bombers. So they never lost a B-17. Yes, they would engage only when they were attacked. They see a Messerschmitt or BF-109 going after a B-17. Then, of course, you got to get them off of that. And naturally, they racked up the kills doing that. So they never lost a single B-17. I always thought that was such an amazing story, whether they're Black or not, right? But yeah, that's my story of the day in regards to, I guess, a little bit of Black history. The Tuskegee Airmen, if you ever are lucky enough to meet somebody who is that age, and let's be honest, even guys that served in, what is it, guys? This year represents the 80th anniversary, right, of the D-Day invasion, right? June 2nd, 1944 to June 6th, 2024. I guess that would be 80 years. That's crazy. But anyway, the point is, recognizing the history. I was trying to make a little bit more of a point, but yeah, Tuskegee Airmen never lost a single B-17, and what a proud thing to pass on. What a great couple of Thanksgivings we had back then. Anyway, does that satisfy you, Mr. Selmo Flood? I don't know. It's not about that. You know what I mean. I could talk about this stuff all day long, but it has nothing to do with crypto. But I do miss teaching and sharing that with some of the kids and stuff in the class. They always liked it when they would always request it literally once a week. If it was Friday surprise, they would say, "Mr. Stanley, tell us about the stories of World War II and stuff." I'm like, I didn't live during then, but World War II affected both sides of my family. My mom's side of the family with Imperial Japan. My dad's side of the family had 2 cousins that served in the European theater, helped liberate a couple, concentration camps. And yeah, people don't want to deny the Holocaust. They do remember when General Eisenhower said, "Hey, take pictures, take photos, take video," right? In the old 8mm, or whatever the heck they used back then, right? Take pictures and record all this, because someday some SOB is going to claim this never happened. And what do you see consistently all the time? You see Holocaust deniers, and you see, for instance, people from I'm not saying good people, like government people from Iran deny it consistently. And no, that's no bash on what's going on currently in regards to the whole thing of Israel and Palestine. Not like that. I understand there's some bad things going on in that regard. And I don't want to get into a big political thing about that, but yeah, that existed then about Holocaust deniers, and it still exists today. That's just the way it goes. What comes with territory, anyway. Enough about the history lesson, right? Anyway, but thank you for that, Summer Flood. I do realize it's February, so anyway, and I have other examples as well. All right, let's see here. Let's go further down. Cool cat here, though. That damn dog is up to something. Soroban is on a lobster wallet. Soroban is a smart contract, so I don't see how you could buy it. Some people pointed out, but maybe you're referring to like you saw smart contracts on it. I don't know. I have to verify that, but that's true. Oh, about the whole thing. Yeah. Well, thank you, Crypto Smith. I appreciate you, Sean. Anyway. All right, let's see here. Beeps. McCaleb is coming after Vitalik. Oh boy. What they need to have is a cage match, right? Everybody wants to see what is it, Elon Musk and what's his name? Mark Zuckerberg. But I don't think it's going to happen because Elon Musk had to get that surgery. You guys ever notice that? He messed up his neck fighting a sumo wrestler. Look it up. Like, what the heck, Elon Musk? What are you doing fighting a he was wrestling a sumo wrestler or something. Anyway, messed up his neck. He had to get surgeries. I don't think the whole thing that we're all hoping for about, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and I don't think it's a boxing match. What are they going to do? MMA? I just don't see that realistically happening now, but I could be wrong. He is the biggest nose picker of all time. All right, what else? Let's see what you guys have. Let's go further down. Peace to you, brother, for a positive story. Oh, yeah, no problem. I mean, it's been a long time since I've shared that. Anyway. What else you guys got? All right. At least one person recognized what I was talking about. And back to crypto. All right. So what use has HBAR for Fed now? Oh, God, we're going to get into that again. I'm not going to do another deep dive on that. We're ending the show. We're almost at 3 hours. It's time to leave. Anybody could check out the old content. Remember me and Rue Black? We didn't do the HBAR one. We did Stellar and Fed now. We did XRP and Fed now. And then later on, we found out there was a whole thing of HBAR and Fed now. And that Fed now is more catered towards HBAR than those other two. And then, but I did that one on my own in regards to Fed now. I think I did it here on this platform. If it's not here, who cares? Anyway, who's keeping count anymore? What is this? Haha, what is it with everyone wanting to find? I don't know. Everybody getting pissed off. I mean, I remember taking a left turn to bring this kid to school this morning. And if I would have took a left turn when this lady behind me wanted me to go into the parking lot, a car would have hit me head on, and she just blares on the horn for me to go. And old me would have been like, hey, you know, screw you, lady, whatever. I don't like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's just, life is too short, and she's not worth my time. Anyway. Mark Brown, Stellar will eventually take over ETH as XLM is bridged to ETH and Solana also. Good point. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show. Please hit the like on your way out. We'll play the outro here in a bit. Know what you have, know why you hold it. The research Trump's FUD 110%. And with that said, sayonara from the Race Cup Consortium. Let's go. Jasmy, not to scam. Corey Bibe, not to scam. Cool Cat Crypto, not to scam. Continue. May possibly be scam. Not really. All right. Peace out. Good night. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. Okay? Something could possibly prevent me from not being here tomorrow night. But for the most part, I'll be back with you. All right. Sayonara. Bye-bye.